Good evening, everyone. I am calling to order this Operations Management Budget Government Accountability Department budget hearing of Tuesday, April 25th to order. Hi, Craig. Let me introduce my council colleagues here present. To my far right is Assistant Majority Leader Marilyn Rosati, followed by Councilman Nick LeBron, Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon. To my left is Councilman John Gale, followed by Councilwoman Tana Hercules. Our Assistant Majority Leader, who is also my co-chair, will be with us shortly, Councilman TJ Clark. For members of the public watching us through social platform, welcome. This evening's agenda, we will start off with the Internal Audit Department, followed by Corporation Counsel, the COO's office, and the Office of the Mayor will be presenting this evening. So, without further ado, our first department presenter is Mr. Craig Trujillo, Chief Auditor with Internal Audit. You have the floor.
I have the floor. Thank you, City Council, for having me tonight. My name is Craig Trujillo. I'm the Chief Auditor for the city. Next slide, first slide. The presentation is very, very similar to last year's, except the budget number changed a little.
I'm sorry, Mr. Trujillo. Mike, could you please, we can't hear him. Yeah, it's very close, though.
Hello?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
As you know, wow, the charter was changed when Eddie Perez became mayor, as a strong mayor, and we created an audit commission. I report to the audit commission of 3 people, and our mandate is to audit the financials, all the operations of the city, including the school board. Like I say, I don't report to the mayor or anyone else in the administration. I do report to the commission. The commission has the authority to hire and fire a chief auditor, and I have the authority to hire and fire my staff. Next one. The audit commission is 3 members, 1 appointed by the treasurer, 1 appointed by city council, and 1 appointed by the top 10 taxpayers, which I think we're changing up a little. It's not it's not finalized yet on how that mechanism worked. We just went through that, and it was very difficult to do. Their terms are 4 years, and they're staggered. Like I say, I report directly to the audit commission. We're totally independent, and like I said before, it was intended to provide oversight over the strong mayor form of government, which I think was brilliant when they came up with it. Next one, next slide. Our mission statement has not changed over the years. We carry out continuous quality improvement initiatives. We make recommendations for operational, financial controls, safeguarding the assets, ensuring compliance with the city charter, municipal code, all our policies and procedures. What I'd like to say is, over the years, all the recommendations we've made have really shown a lot of improvement in the operations in the city, across all the departments. Every year we do an audit plan. I usually put 25 to 30 audits on the plan. We rank, we've got about 168 auditable areas across the whole city, and we rank them high, medium, low. The highs we try to hit every 2 to 3 years, mediums 3 to 5, and the lower risk areas maybe every 7 years. With a staff of 4, that's what I have. Next. Yeah, we consist, there's five of us. I'm the chief auditor, I'm a CPA. Three of the staff are CPAs, one's a CIA. They all have MBAs. We have combined experience in the business of at least 150 years. So we got a good staff. Our recommended budget is $534,412, which is a 2% increase in payroll, and that increase is contractual. The 4 staff are in the HPA union, so that 2% is contractual increases. Other expenses, office supplies, we have monthly maintenance on our audit work paper software, which is, I think our other expenses are less than $20,000, so. Highlights, we made a lot of recommendations for improvements in policies, documented procedures, controls. Not as many as in the past because a lot of it's been implemented. We routinely follow up on the due dates when recommendations were agreed to be implemented. We've done a lot of cleanup and we're pretty up to date on following up on all those. We have audit software that we're using now. The audit recommendations, like I said, we're in really good shape on that. We spent a lot of time following up and cleaning up all that. Special reviews and investigations this year so far, we've only had a few, and one resulted in a arrest warrant and an indictment. That's in the process now with the court system. We've reviewed some policies and new procedures that finance was putting out. So we work closely with them when they come out with revised policies and procedures. We're all maintaining our certifications through 40 hours of CPEs every year. And we do maintain the fraud hotline. I think I got 1 call on the fraud hotline this year, which is not unusual. Next, please. The demographics, I'm of Hispanic descent. Desmond Sinclair is Black Jamaican. Fulak, which I hired last year, he's Asian. He's from Vietnam. Jay, White Caucasian, and Donna, White Caucasian. And we're fully staffed. That's about it.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Trujillo. I'm going to open it up now to my council colleagues for questions. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Craig Trujillo? Councilman LeBron?
I expected one from Nick.
Hello, Mr. Trujillo. How are you this evening?
I'm doing just fine.
Just fine.
But I do have some news.
Yes.
I'm going to be retiring this year.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
I have 16 years with the city that I can buy for.
All right.
and it's about time.
All right. So does that mean I can make my questions hard or easier?
Depends on if I want to answer them. Or does it matter?
So, but we could talk offline, Craig.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the audit projects, there's estimated 20 audit projects planned for the year, and you have 5 staff. Would it be safe to say that each staff is in charge of 4 audit projects or scheduled audit projects
What
per
I
year?
did this year is I took our audit plan and I assigned 5 audits to each auditor. That
Okay.
gives us 20. And then whatever I do is over and above that,
Okay.
which has worked out really well. So they know, here's the 5 audits, I've got this amount of time to complete them. So if you get tied up on this one, you can be working on planning for the next one, and it's worked very well. And
Yeah.
we're on plan.
Yeah,
We're
it's
a little slow in getting the reports out. I'm not going to criticize management, but there's always another priority, and it's really, I really try and stress with my staff, when we're doing audit, we're the priority, you know, or we're going to be here forever. We don't want to be that, so.
Yeah, they seem to come out with regularity, probably on a monthly basis, I believe. So, Mr. Trujillo, could you walk us through the biggest difference between a planned audit and an unplanned audit and how that works? I like to think I understand it, but just in general, what are some nuances that would be the difference between a planned versus unplanned audit?
A lot of audit departments throughout all the industries, especially insurance companies, which I sit on the board of the Insurance Internal Audit Group. We're a group of 400 auditors with 200 companies. We have meetings twice a year. And audit departments are doing audit plans differently. Some will do a 6-month audit plan. Some won't do an audit plan. Some will do a 12-month audit plan. I do a fiscal year audit plan. So 25 audits I have on the list. And I'm very flexible. If we go in there and we can't do the audit, we'll just do another one on there. If someone comes to us and asks us to specifically review an area, I might substitute it or just add it on. So the audit plan is not, I don't consider it etched in stone. It's living every day, and it can change. But we do it we file our audit plan with the town clerk, I think we do. No, or do we? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, so, through you, Madam President, just to go into the little specifics, what kickstarts an unplanned audit?
It would be a request from, let's say, if I got a call from Leanne, Finance Director, she said, I'd like you guys to take a really close look at the P-card spending for this period. There's things that don't quite look right. And I'd sit down, talk with me, go through it, and I could schedule an audit, go immediately in there, go in there in a week or two, and maybe substitute that for something else we were gonna do. So, or if something comes into our attention, or we have an issue somewhere, say we had an issue with the contractual compliance with the stadium, I would talk to the audit commission and say, through my contacts, I think we got some issues over there, and I think we should do an audit there. So it works like that.
Okay, so specifically as it pertains to unplanned audits, how many of those phone calls do you get a year, and how many actually get audited? Or how many you mentioned phone calls, but I assume they would come through email, phone calls, or various, whatever communication. How is that tracked? So, and then what is the percentage, or how many of those clues, I can't think of a better word, but how many of those attempts to get the auditors to look versus how many you actually audit?
Are you talking about special reviews or investigations, or?
All right, so in the FY24 budget, you projected 20 planned audits, right? And in the period last year, you did 5 or 4 unplanned audits. Would that be correct to say? I mean, I can look it up here.
They would be special reviews or investigations.
I apologize. Michael, are you trying to say for someone to pull back?
Oh, yeah, there's the fan. It's hot up here.
Yeah, can you turn
Tilt
it
it
off for a
down?
minute, Councilman, while your microphone is on?
Oh, yeah, you thought
Thank you.
you thought it was a hurricane up here? So, okay, so I think, what page is it? 14.2. Okay, so let me go to 14.2. So on 14.2, thank you, Councilman. There was, in 2022, there was 2 actual unplanned special projects and reviews completed, right?
What year was that?
That was 2022. And then last year, there was 5 unplanned special projects and reviews completed. So my question is, how many referrals, for lack of a better word, do you get that ask for special projects and reviews completed, and how many do you actually do? I mean, you did 5, but
Right.
how many total did you get last year?
In the past, going back to 2010 through 2016, 17, and prior, we were getting a lot of requests for special reviews. A lot of it coming from political activists in the city, concerned citizens, anonymous. Nothing really through the fraud hotline. It was coming in, a lot of them came in through Bruce, the commissioner, through all his contacts. Somebody would come up to Bruce and say, look, I think we got a problem here, blah, blah. And then Bruce would come to me, we'd talk about it, I'd look into it. And if there was anything of substance I saw there, then I'd bring it up to the Audit Commission, and we would vote on it. Do we want to pursue it? Do we not want to pursue it? Most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, we do pursue the special request and unplanned special audits.
So 99% of the
Yeah.
time. So if you did 5...
Very rarely do we say there's nothing here, or nothing, this is beyond our charter.
Okay.
The fact that we can't look into this, that's not what we do.
So
We used to
99...
get a lot of them from Alyssa.
Okay, got it. So 99% of the time, you do take the cases. So would it be safe to say that there was only 6 referrals for the audit
Yeah,
last year, and you only
Yeah.
took 5?
yeah.
Okay, all right. My next question in regards to the baseball stadium. So you said your area of responsibility is, it just says baseball stadium. Can you elaborate a little bit more in terms of what does that mean?
That would be auditing to their compliance to the contract, to the agreement with the city. For example, was it Dunkin' Donuts was giving them $500,000 a year to make sure that would happen. They share in some of their revenue, and there's schedules in there when they have to, and we've looked at that before. So it's basically compliance to our contract with them.
So
And
specific.
in the contract, they have, there's clauses in there that they're supposed to hire so many Hartford residents,
Right.
things like that. And we look at that. And They keep a lot of data on that, and they do have, I'm not gonna say excuses, but reasons why they can't meet that.
And so, that's, you actually alluded to my next question in terms of minority hiring and City of Hartford residents hiring.
Right.
There has been a lot of conversation that those haven't been met. So
No.
you're saying
Right.
that they haven't been met, and yet we haven't audited them?
I could make a recommendation, say, and point out, you have not met this. What are you gonna do to
Right.
meet this going forward?
So would it be safe to say that you don't really have any leverage and/or teeth to enforce that?
No.
Right,
We have no, we
Right.
can't enforce anything.
right. So where do you go with that information? Who do you take it to? Who's the fangs? Who's the teeth? Who's your enforcement division behind that?
If I were to do let's say I were to do that audit tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
I would address that audit report probably to Luke.
To the mayor directly?
To the mayor.
Okay,
And/or the COO,
okay.
either one,
And last question, Madam President.
either one.
So you alluded to a possible arrest, but you didn't allude to the level or the police agency. Would it be safe to say that that possible arrest, A, is under investigation, and that B, it's under investigation with Hartford Police Department, or is it under investigation with another crime enforcement agency?
Are we talking about the one in town clerk's office?
I didn't mention any names.
It's public information.
Okay, well,
It's on the
is that the
judicial-
one we're
it's on
talking
the
about?
judicial website.
Right, but there was an arrest made with that.
Yes.
You mentioned in the presentation that there was an arrest made.
Yes.
And then there's another possible arrest or another possible investigation. So in your PowerPoint presentation.
Oh,
Right, so in your PowerPoint presentation, you said, and one other possible arrest.
Right.
So is that arrest A, under investigation, and then B, under investigation with which criminal or public safety enforcement enterprise?
I'll be candid with this one.
Okay, you about to retire anyway, right?
The one with the town clerk worked specifically with the HPD. I worked with the HPD. I'll give the town clerk putting the whole document together to put the arrest warrant together. And that was very successful. Got the arrest. It's in the stage. The person's been arraigned. So I guess they're in the plea bargaining or whether it's going to go to trial, whatever. That's a good one. The other one's with the school board, student activity funds.
Okay.
And I got a call from the chief financial officer and said, we have a problem. I went over there. They did the whole investigation without even telling us. That's a whole different story with complying to the fraud policy. So I got involved. I was involved in all the interviews and everything else. And there was a lot of money involved. And it's very difficult to determine what was missing. It was all cash. The records were manipulated. They weren't kept, whatever. The one criminal charge that we could make that will stick is check forgery. The person forged signatures on various checks for expenditures out of the SAF fund. I was going back and forth with the board, with their counsel and the CFO. And when they terminated her, they said, that is the end of your involvement. Now it's an HR issue. I argued, It's not an HR issue. This is a matter that should be referred to the Hartford Police Department for check forgery. They refused to answer me.
They being the Hartford Public Schools?
Yes.
Okay, so,
They will not tell me or the commission what they intend to do regarding referring it to the Hartford Police Department. I talked to the HPD, and it has not been referred over there.
right, so would it be safe to say that you're writing on this report of one other possible arrest is actually your opinion, your subjective opinion? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions for the Audit Department?
I'll just make
Councilman-
one comment when we're talking about the Hartford Police Department. If we do an investigation and we say, okay, we got a good case here, we got a lot of evidence, we have fraudulent activity. According to the municipal code and the charter, we are required to consult with Corp Counsel before we go to the HPD. And we've done that on this one, but we have not gone to the HPD. Tomorrow, we've got an audit commission meeting, and it's on the agenda to talk about this, whether we refer this case to the HPD.
So, all right, because I had finished, Madam President, but Mr. Trujillo brought it back up. So I just have to ask now, so are we saying that Corporation Counsel helps to seek criminal charges? They're part of that process? And are we saying that up until this point, this possible arrest is your subjective opinion, and then tomorrow you're going to meet with Corporation Counsel to see if we should contact HPD?
We would consult with them and agree with Corp Counsel. Here's what we got. What do you think? We want to go to the HPD with it. They would agree or disagree. We've never had that issue where they disagreed with us.
So there seems to be a disagreement now.
Not with Corp Counsel.
So Corp Counsel wants this person to be investigated and arrested.
I can't get that answer from them.
So they're withholding that answer from you?
Yes.
Okay. So, Madam President, I'm sorry.
In the best interest of
Ju-
time,
okay,
Councilman,
all right.
If we could take this offline?
Absolutely. Just Corporation Counsel, I'm going to ask about that when Corporation Counsel comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Hercules?
Thank you, Madam President. Through you, it's a very easy, it should be an easy question. In the commission composition, when you were describing the commission composition,
Yep.
you mentioned that the top 10 taxpayers, that mechanism would be changed. Could you maybe explain the different mechanisms you're looking at or alternatives you're looking at? I was just curious about that.
In the past, the top 10 taxpayers, and it stands right now, they make a recommendation to council, 2 people. Council picks one. When Oz Griebold was alive, Oz handled that process through all his contacts, and he coordinated that whole thing. Now, the folks over there now had no clue about any of this. Oz did it for us. We just went through this process last year. Was it last year? Yeah. And if you think about it, you take the top 10 taxpayers from the grand list at the big real estate company, those folks, who do you go to? The top 10 taxpayers don't have a clue. So I was working with this group that deals and has regular meetings with the chief financial officers of all the big corporations. I said, that's perfect. The chief financial officer, that's the person that we'd want to deal with. And they do change in the companies, you know that. And I forget the name of the group, but they really facilitated it, and we got the 2 recommendations. There's some things on the table right now to change that from the top 10 taxpayers to maybe the chief auditor working with different groups to come up with 2 folks. We're working with the mayor's office also. So that hasn't, we have not formally changed it, to my knowledge, yet. So,
Thank you.
and we won't have to worry about that for another 3.5 years.
Councilman Gale? No other questions? Councilwoman Surgeon?
Thanks, Madam Chair. You mentioned that there is something on the table regarding changing the person recommendation for the top 10 business person.
On how that works. Like I say, logistically, trying to find the right person in Aetna. Who do we go to? All right, we'll go to the chief financial officer. But you have to have coordination of 10 of them. You need 10 CFOs to get together in a room and come up with 2 people to put on the audit commission for the city of Hartford.
So let me ask you, sir, whose responsibility is that, yours or the council?
It's
basically,
it's actually the responsibility of
I thought the
the
council
city
appoints.
assessor,
Okay,
John Phillip,
recommends to council.
to coordinate that effort with the 10 top taxpayers. It ended up in John's lap because he runs the grand list. John had no clue of how to do that. So,
So is it the ordinance that says who's appointed, or is it charter?
pardon me?
Choosing the appointees of commissioners.
Right,
The charter gives one to the treasurer,
right,
one to the top 10, and one person to the council.
correct.
Okay. And so through that process, you're saying it's the assessor who actually coordinates the choice of the top 10.
His responsibility is to arrange for the 10 top taxpayers to have a representative for the group to come up with 2 people. Think about the logistics of trying to do that. 10 CFOs or 10 chief counsels or 2 chief counsels, and because the corporations don't know, there's nobody designated in the company.
I got that.
To do that.
So basically what you're saying is that, this is one of the recommendations of something that needs to be changed.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trujillo, and thank you for serving the city.
I'm
pretty
still
sure
here.
I'm pretty sure I'll see you in the upcoming meetings. But it's like I tell every department head, you can choose to work somewhere else, but you still choose to stay in the city of Hartford. So I thank you for that. And so we're done with your presentation. If anyone has any follow-up questions, we'll be emailing your office. Okay? And what I ask of every department head is if you do get a question from a council member, please share your answer back with all of us.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Thank you.
You got
Have
it. Thanks.
have a good evening. We will now hear from our corporation counsel. So this evening from Corporation Counsel, we have Howard Rifkin, who is the Corporation Counsel, and Ms. Alexandra Lombardi, who is the Deputy Corporation Counsel. Mr. Rifkin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President, members of the council. It's good to be with you. We have a very short presentation, and we will address Councilman LeBron's question as soon as I get the bus tire marks off of my back. But we'll get to that after the presentation. Very quickly. I'm not going to go through all the slides. They're pretty much the slides many of you have seen over the last several years. What I would point out is
I can take care of it for you.
Sorry. Just go to the organization chart. So we have 15 authorized full-time positions. 2 of them are vacant. We have a para position that's vacant and an assistant corporation counsel position that's vacant. You can see the rest of the chart. We just recently filled 2 associate counsel positions and 2 young attorneys that we're very excited to have join the office. And I'm sure many of you will get to meet them as they continue their work with us. And we have them involved in a whole assortment and range of activities and cases that our office is involved in. Let me go back to, I'm sorry. Where's the slide on the number of people? Okay, it's not there. All right. So just to give you a sense, we have probably about 1,500 outstanding cases and matters in the office or at any one time. In terms of use of outside counsel versus attorneys in our office, I would say probably about 20% of our cases are handled by outside counsel, often with the supervision of one of the members of our staff. There are occasions, for example, in a lawsuit against the city and individuals like a police officer, where there may not be an alignment of interests, and so the city would hire outside counsel to represent the police officers in the litigation. But on other matters, complex matters, for example, center plan versus the city of Hartford, we've engaged outside counsel so that we have the expertise of a firm that does a lot of construction litigation, as an example. Going to our general fund budget, it's pretty much a flat budget. It's just about all personnel costs. The small increase of approximately $28,000 is due to wage adjustments and an upgrade of 1 position in our office. And so it's pretty much from year to year, pretty stable budget. Again, we have 15 positions authorized, 13 are filled at the moment. And with that, let me ask my colleague, Alexandra Lombardi, to speak directly to Councilman LeBron's question about this Hartford Board of Education issue, and then we're prepared to answer any other questions you may have.
Now, can you hear me? Excellent. Hi, everyone. How are you? Councilman LeBron, I didn't know if you wanted to ask specific questions, or the question, as I understand it, was why has Corporation Counsel not provided the auditor with an answer as to whether it should be referred for criminal investigation, the issue with the Hartford Public Schools? Is that the question?
I think, just to preface it, when I came in today, I didn't know I would be asking that question. I just want to make that clear.
We didn't know we'd be answering.
Yeah, I mean,
either, so.
but life brings us in various directions in various ways, and so yes, I think that is the question of the involvement with Corporation Counsel through auditing criminal investigation is kind of the larger thought process, and then B, the recommendations and or lack of recommendations from the Corporation Counsel. So in this one instance where it's again, trying to use the language was possible arrest, we were just told that Corporation Counsel didn't align, or that Corporation Counsel said that they weren't aligned with the arrest.
Yeah, so to clarify, Corporation Counsel hasn't been asked an opinion of whether an individual should be arrested or whether it should be referred for criminal investigation. So the attorney who normally provides legal counsel to internal audit also provides legal counsel to the Board of Education. And so my office recognized a potential conflict with advising Internal Audit Commission on this particular audit, because we can't have one attorney representing divergent interests. And so I advised the chief auditor that should he have questions related to that particular audit, he should come directly to me. The only question I've received from the chief auditor to date is whether the Hartford Public Schools referred that case or that individual to the Hartford Police Department for investigation criminally, and the answer I gave the chief auditor was no, because that's factually accurate. I've not been asked for a recommendation or for any counsel related to that audit otherwise.
So it's not in Corporations Counsel job description, area of responsibility to recommend arrest in any investigation, whether it be audit or not, right? Would that be correct?
We're not criminal attorneys, and we're not the police, and we're not the state's attorneys, though, as you know, we provide legal counsel when asked.
Right.
So if they had a question about whether it was appropriate to refer, we can have that conversation, but no, we don't recommend that individuals get arrested or not.
And could I just clarify? Our ordinances are written so that if the internal auditors are looking into an allegation of fraud, which is the word that's used in the ordinance, if they intend to refer the matter to the Hartford Police Department for potential criminal investigation, they are supposed to consult with our office before they do that. But as Alex said, we're not responsible for making a determination as to whether or not there's any probable cause to move forward with some kind of a criminal action of any kind, or for that matter, an investigation.
So the purpose of the counsel is what?
I would think, and I wasn't here when the ordinance was adopted and don't exactly know what was in the minds of the members of the council at the time that voted for it, but I would assume that it would be to consult with whether or not there's a legal basis upon which to refer it to the Hartford Police Department, which would in turn determine whether or not there was any notion that there was criminal activity that should be further investigated.
Okay. Madam President, I've taken a lot of airspace already this first two presentations. So I'll defer to others, and I have questions specifically for Corporation Counsel, but maybe other council members have the same questions. So I'll pass my time
That
in
would be
lieu
very
of.
nice,
Yes,
Councilman
thank you.
LeBron. Councilman Hernandez? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Question, you mentioned earlier that about 20% of the cases are referred to outside attorneys. On your line item budget, I don't see a line item budget for subcontractors or other attorneys, which make me believe that perhaps the cost of those attorneys is covered by the department, the city department that's involved in the case. Is that a correct assumption or not?
Do you want me to answer?
So if you look on page 29-2 of the budget document, of the budget book,
Yep.
you see this is under non-operating department expenditures. So item 009 at the top of the page is a appropriation for legal expenses and settlements. So within that number, there is an amount that would be used to pay outside counsel for services to the city.
Which is not pre-allocated to any specific department. It's like
No.
a bucket where that funding is there.
That's correct. The Corporation Counsel represents the city in all legal matters.
Okay.
So any legal issue that the city's involved in comes through our office.
Perfect. Last question, can you help me understand what is the one factor or one particular reason that you would use to determine whether outside counsel is preferable or more appropriate than using our internal resources?
I would say three things. I mentioned two of them before. One is where we're required to represent an employee who's being sued along with the city, and it's our determination that the city and the employee may not have an alignment of interests, and therefore the individual, the employee of the city, needs to have separate counsel. That's one. Number two, where we make a determination that the matter that we're being sued on or that we're litigating is complex enough that we really need an attorney who specializes in a particular area of the law. So as an example, the case involving the baseball stadium is very complex litigation. It's been going on for years now. It's still going on. We hired outside counsel to represent the city in that, even though my office is very much involved in the litigation and supervising it. We felt that we needed somebody with some expertise. And then the third area I would say is generally when we feel that we don't have the bandwidth. We may have counsel internally that have the ability and the capacity and the knowledge to handle a matter, but we may not have the bandwidth, and we need to bring in outside counsel to help in the matter. And that could include a matter of litigation, or it could include negotiating a development agreement as two examples.
Oh, thank you.
Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti?
Thank you, Council President. Corporation Counsel Rifkin, Deputy Corporation Counsel Lombardi. Two things. One question, one statement. Statement. First, I want to have you relay to Assistant Corporation Counsel Jim Del Visco, thank him for the last almost 4 years chairing Parks, Public Works, Recreation, and Environment Committee. We've really appreciated his expertise, and it's been odd at times doing it via Zoom, and thank him for that. I know people talk about outside counsel often. My question is, as you said, 20%, is that an industry norm, standard for municipalities?
I don't really know the answer to that question because every municipality in the state is organized differently. I would say, for example, many towns, most municipalities in Connecticut, their corporation counsel is an outside counsel. So some of the smaller towns and even some of the smaller cities have either no corporation counsel and hire outside counsel, or maybe have a corporation counsel and an assistant corporation counsel, and most of their work is done by outside attorneys. So it varies depending upon the municipality.
So as you said, it would be safe to say that often if they have a setup as we have, they don't have the expertise to do particular issues that would be more complex than what our setup has now. So that would be a norm in some ways for towns to have expert counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at every mid-sized to large law firm, private law firm in the state of Connecticut, you will find attorneys who do practice in the municipal law space.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Surgeon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Corporation Counsel and Deputy Corporation Counsel. I have no questions for you. I just have a statement. Over the last 4 years, I have appreciated both of you all coming to council with the budget process. Corporation Counsel Rifkin, I've known you for decades. And I just want to thank both of you all for the services that you have provided. I know serving the public may not be the most payments that is great for an attorney, and you may have gone to the private sector and work and make way more money than working for the municipality. But you choose to work for the municipality and for government, and that's a service I want to thank you for. We don't really, a lot of times we come to the budget hearings and we have a lot of questions, but over the last 4 years, you have answered all my questions. You provided all the information I needed to make a good decision regarding approval of the mayor's budget for the city of Hartford. So again, thank you very much for your service, and I wholeheartedly appreciate it. And this is our last budget together, so I just wanted to publicly say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much.
Councilman Meacham?
Thank you, Madam President, and thanks to both of you for the presentation and for your work, and good evening. Just 2 questions. One, concerning settlements, the ones that we see in executive session. A thing that I think we've noticed is that a lot of times, or we'll ask, what's going to happen so that this doesn't happen again? There'll be something where there's a reason why we have to settle for maybe more money than we would like, or whatever the case is. Is there a structure in place so that your office sort of, after a lawsuit or after a settlement, does some sort of analysis or presents something to the mayor or the relevant department saying, here's what you should do, here's the policy you should put in place so we don't get burned this way again?
It's a great question, and I can't say directly that we do that as a matter of formality, but over the 7.5 years that we've been here, we have had numerous conversations about seeing cases, similar cases over and over again. What comes to mind are accidents involving city cars. And we've on occasion talked about, are there preventive measures that one can take to try to minimize or reduce the number of accidents that involve city vehicles. And it's a very hard task. Now, if in the police department, if officer is involved in an accident, they actually have to go back to school and take additional take a driving remediation course, for lack of a better phrase. That's not true in other departments of the city. I think it's a great observation, and we probably should do more of that.
If I could just add on to what Corporation Counsel Rifkin just said, I'll also mention that we don't wait to the point of settlement to address issues if they become apparent in the course of learning about litigation or in the course of discovery. You know, our office is proactive in providing legal advice where we see deficiencies or areas for improvement. So that's an ongoing process, and it's not really triggered as a result of a settlement in any large or small amount, but really just as a result of any observation on our part that may come as part of litigation. It may come as part of a request for legal advice that it, you know, just kind of shows that there's an area for improvement or change that legal advice would help with. So just wanted to note that while there isn't a formal process when there's a large settlement, there is ongoing exchange with departments and legal counsel in our department.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, when we came into office, I think one of the things we noticed was a propensity to settle cases as opposed to litigating matters where we thought the city actually had a good defense. And I felt, and I think Alex shared my view, that plaintiffs' bar often saw the city as easily and willing and ready to essentially roll over and pay money to settle something as opposed to litigating it. And I think we made it clear early on in our tenure that we weren't going to take that approach, and that we were going to be much more rigorous in our approach and our decision-making about what cases really should settle. I would say that my observation also is that over the last several years in particular, I think the courts have been much more aggressive in pushing settlements on litigants, particularly municipalities litigating. And juries, frankly, have been awarding higher and higher verdicts against municipalities on a multitude of civil litigation. So sort of a balancing act, I believe.
I said 2 questions, but now you made me want to ask a follow-up, so it's going to be 3.
Well, then I won't talk anymore.
In terms of the sort of the change of approach that you just talked about, litigating more, settling less, do you have you done any sort of analysis of that in terms of, you know, ratio or the percentage of lawsuits that you litigate versus that you settle, and maybe also how has that played out in terms of litigation cost, settlement cost, savings or loss?
We haven't done a data analysis. I mean, I'd be happy to dig in a little bit and provide you with some information. I would say that the number of settlements pales in comparison to the number of cases that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to know
Yeah.
how the different approach affects the overall, you know, the money. But my last question is more simpler, which is, of the folks in the office, how many live in Hartford, the folks who work in the office?
I have that number. Hang on one second. I believe that there are, of the 13, there are 3 of us who live in the city of
Forgive me,
Hartford.
I didn't do the reading.
Pardon
Just
me?
like when I was in school, I didn't do the reading. You already told us. It's 30%. Sorry. I'm all set.
Okay.
Councilwoman Hercules?
Thank you. Through you, Madam President. First, thank you, Corp Counsel Rifkin and Deputy Corp Counsel Lombardi. You're always available to answer questions, and I greatly appreciate that. I'm just curious, you mentioned the 1,500 caseload, which is pretty mighty. One specifically, obviously, the Dunkin' Donuts Stadium litigation that was recently, or last year, remanded. Just curious if you can give kind of an update on where things are with that. And then my second question to that, given the significant amount of damages that those plaintiffs are seeking, I believe it's around $90 million, at what point has a budgetary analysis been done? Kind of speaking to Councilman Mixum's question about analyzing what this means for the city's bottom line, right? Because it's unlikely that's going to happen next year, right? But if they were to get that $90 million verdict, what that means in the future for the overall budget and finances of the city.
Sure. What Councilwoman Hercules is referring to is the Center Plan versus City of Hartford lawsuit involving the stadium. Everybody knows about it. In June of 2016, we terminated Center Plan from the stadium project. We then, the following year, in October of 2017, terminated Dono, which was named as the developer for the total project, including all the parcels around the stadium. That led to litigation, which in the first trial, there was a jury verdict in favor of the city and an award of liquidated damages to the city in the amount of $375,000. The plaintiffs appealed directly to the Supreme Court, and in May of last year, the Supreme Court set aside the jury verdict, remanded the case back for a new trial. The reason why they remanded the case was because they concluded that the trial judge made errors in rulings of the law of the case. So, for example, the trial judge made certain rulings about who controlled the architects in the design and the construction of the stadium. And the Supreme Court disagreed with the trial court's judgment about what the law was, and therefore remanded the case on that and other matters. So we are before Judge Noble, who heads up complex litigation in Hartford Superior Court. We are going back and forth on a trial schedule. Currently, a new trial is scheduled for the end of April, this time next year, 2024. We have filed a motion. Well, let me step back. One of the pleadings on the part of the plaintiffs, one of the counts in their complaint for the new trial, is asking for specific performance. And by that I mean they are asking that if it is found that the city wrongfully terminated Center Plan in Dono, that Dono should be, in the matter of course, be entitled to, in fact, take back the development of the property around the stadium. We have filed a motion to dismiss that count of the complaint, and we believe that that issue is not before the trial court and shouldn't be considered as part of this next trial, that what should be considered only if the city were found to be at fault is monetary damages. Speaking to that, while the plaintiffs have alleged that there is up to $90 million of damages that they've suffered as a result of our termination, they have to introduce evidence at a trial that will prove that, in fact, they did suffer $90 million worth of damages. And I can tell you that in the first trial, their offer of proof was such that they could get up to $25 or $26 million. And I don't dismiss that as a number. It's a big number. I'm just saying that one should take with a grain of salt the assertion that they've suffered $90 million. Directly with respect to your question of whether we've done any kind of analysis of what the financial impact might be, I must say that that would be totally speculative. I have said to outside auditors as part of their annual audit of the city of Hartford's finances that it was my judgment that for FY24 and probably FY25, there would not be any impact from any kind of judgment against the city in the center plan case.
Thank you.
Councilman Gill, nothing? Councilman LeBron?
Thank you, Madam President. So yes, some of my questions were asked by my council colleagues. So through you,
Councilman
Madam.
LeBron, the fan, please.
Oh, my fan. It's hot. And it's loud. So on your, Attorney Rifkin, on your strategic plan initiatives from last year to this year, what was removed was the continue to implement a new administrative hearing officer system so that the hearing officers can handle any of the myriad of administrative appeals across city department. Is it safe to say that that structure is now in place and is solid?
Correct.
Thank you. In terms of what we're seeing in governments, both locally, statewide, federally, is an increase in FOI requests. How much of your office, or how is your office managing the increase of FOI requests? Or is that managed by your office at all?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm going to let Alex describe what happens when
Sure.
somebody makes an FOI request, so it's clear to the council. But I'm not sure that I would say that we've seen a huge increase in FOI requests. I mean, we get a ton of FOI requests, and I don't want to minimize that, but I'm not sure that we've seen an inordinate growth in the numbers over the last several years. But having said that,
Sure.
I think it's important for the council to understand what happens when an FOI request comes to the city and how it gets administered.
Sure. Let me just preface. The reason why I stated that was during these budget hearings, the police department stated that they have seen a huge increase in FOI requests. So is that done separately from your office? Do they not talk with you?
Well, I think that's relevant to
Okay.
what I want Alex to describe.
And I'm happy to describe the process, but more to the point of your question, Councilman LeBron, FOI requests go into the department that would have the responsive documents, or if it goes to the wrong department, are referred to the right department. So FOI is not just managed by my office. Our office oversees the GovQA software system. So we assist with departments that are having trouble logging complaints, or obviously if they have legal questions regarding their response, we provide that advice. But we don't need to provide legal advice and counsel on every FOI request that comes into the city. And unless there is a question about where something should be referred, the department would handle that request directly. So to your question, there are certain departments that have probably seen an influx in FOI requests and others that receive fewer and might not have seen an increase this past year.
Thank you. In terms of the caseload, so you said you see 1,500 cases a year, and the budget for subcontractors versus who we have on staff is 3 times more. When do we reach that tipping point where it makes sense to hire someone internally to bring that down? Because that number seems pretty large. Has there been an assessment done?
A couple of things. One is the number that's in the budget is a total of both outside counsel and settlement
Got it.
funds,
Thank you.
right? So,
Yes.
so you have to keep that in mind. We can
Correct.
break that out for you if you want. But I would say that, quite frankly, one of the drivers of the additional costs for outside counsel involves the fact that when we hire outside counsel, it's often for a much more complex
Right.
case. Again, I'll use center plan as an example. And so I think it's I think your question is an important one to understand what is the balance between having counsel who work for the city of Hartford versus using outside counsel. And that's a issue that Deputy Corporation Counsel Lombardi and I talk about all the time, is trying to maintain the right balance. And I think right now we have it correct, but the numbers don't necessarily tell the entire story. When you look behind them, you have to look at the complexity of the litigation and the duration of the litigation for which we may hire outside counsel.
And so the last question, Madam President, in the report, it stated 3,000 in revenue. Just curious what that 3,000 is.
That is a great question. I believe that it is largely monies that we receive in restitution on various cases. So, for example, the criminal case involving Dillon Stadium way back when, with Mr. Duckett and Mr. Anderson, led to an amount of restitution that they owed the city over a period of time. So I believe that number largely reflects that.
That's why it's 3,000 exactly year to year, right?
That you will have to ask
Okay.
the budget team.
Okay. Thank you.
It's an estimate.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman. So Howard, I just want to thank you for always taking my phone calls at any time and your advice on Attorney Lombardi. It's always a pleasure to have you guys in front of us and work with you. This concludes your presentation in front of us. None of us have any other questions, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're just going to take a quick 5-minute recess. We'll be right back. Next coming up is our Chief Operating Officer, Thea Montanez. Good evening, everyone. And so we are continuing our department budget presentations. And now with us is the Chief of Operations, Thea Montanez. You have the floor.
Good evening, Council President. Can everyone hear me okay? Nope. Turned it off. Is this better? It is. Okay, great. Good evening, Council President and members of City Council. It is great to be with you. This is my 8th presentation to the City Council, my 8th budget presentation. And I am very grateful to the amazing team behind me that I get the privilege of working with every day. I've never met a group of more talented, dedicated professionals. So I'm really grateful for them to be a part of tonight's presentation. And I'm joined, one of them is Corey Mills, our performance manager, and he volunteered to go through the deck. So I'll go ahead and get started. Page 2 of the PowerPoint just outlines the mission and strategic priorities for the Office of the COO. You know, our mission is to manage the day-to-day operations of the city on behalf of the mayor, as well as take on any sort of special projects or initiatives at his request. Our priorities are the same this year and this upcoming fiscal year as they have been during COVID, and that's really to support and lead the city's recovery plan of the COVID-19 pandemic, both for our residents, of course, our employees, and our broader community. We continue to work hand in hand with city departments to find opportunities to improve efficiencies and encourage interdepartmental coordination. And last but not least, we have a focus, of course, on using data to inform decision-making to improve the overall effectiveness and efficiency of city departments. The third slide is an organizational chart, and you will see that the office itself is broken up in 3 divisions. There is, of course, the director, or the Office of Equity and Opportunity, which is led by Karen Taylor. As part of Karen's role, she also has administrative oversight over the Inspector General. The middle there is our Office of Community Safety and Wellness, which is about a year old. It is an office that we established last year with the help of COVID federal relief funds. That office has been focused, is led by Patricia McIntosh, and its focus is to coordinate interdepartmental efforts to more effectively respond to the needs of groups within the community that are living through addiction, maybe incarceration, that are struggling with mental illness, that are unhoused. These are opportunities for us to work together more as city departments to figure out how we can not just be more effective or efficient, but also be more compassionate and integrate compassion in the work that we do each and every day. You'll see under Community Safety and Wellness, there is the Hartford Community Responder Initiative, which we refer to as the HEART Team. There is the Hospital Violence Intervention Program. There is, of course, the Promise Zone, the North Hartford Promise Zone, and last but not least, there is reentries. That's the work we do with justice-involved youth and adults. And then all the way to the right, there is our Capital Projects and Operations Division that is led by Paul Drummy. That is an office that has a huge responsibility to oversee, you know, the maintenance of city infrastructure. That's everything from our roadways to our public spaces like our parks and, of course, our city facilities, which also include our school facilities. And so within Paul's division, there is the Office of Sustainability, which is led by Cecilia Drayton, and there is also performance management. As I said, Corey Mills leads that work, and then our 311 office. Some highlights, I'll start with the operational side of the office. Again, this work is led by Paul Drummy. We have a very robust CIP, Capital Improvement Program. It's about $130 million over 5 years. And a big part of that is school construction. The city of Hartford has never seen, I would say, this much activity as it pertains to school construction as it's seen during the past, I would say, 5 to 6 years. Part of that includes an effort, most recently, to onboard a program manager, an architect, and a construction manager for the Wish, Betances, and Kennelly schools, which all 3 are now in design. Second highlight has been successfully managing the 2023 priority list submission for 3 additional schools, that is Moylan, McDonough, and Parkville schools. We were successful in securing a 95 reimbursement rate from the state of Connecticut to support the renovation and construction of these facilities. And so we are now working towards adding an additional 3 schools to the 2024 priority list, and that's Batchelder, Sand, and Sanchez schools. And, you know, in order to do this work, it really requires us to better organize ourselves. And so part of Paul's focus has been finding opportunities to improve communications, again, efficiency, effectiveness. And so we are currently in the process of implementing a new project management software system that allows city staff that are all working on CIP to be able to receive updates in real time about the status of CIP projects, as well as improve our documentation process, which is really important. Slide 5, so this is the work that Corey Mills leads. This is a very new office, and so, you know, it's something that I've talked about in previous years during my budget presentation. I am so proud of the fact that it is actually up and running this year. So, you know, the goal is to create, you know, ensure that we are making data-informed decisions and, you know, holding ourselves accountable to the commitments that we make in terms of service delivery to the community. In addition, you know, Corey has been critical in our ability to update policies and practices, again, so that we are holding ourselves accountable and delivering on the commitments that we make to community. There are so many policies and practices that are very antiquated in the city of Hartford, and so, you know, unfortunately, it is challenging to try to update all of them, but as issues arise, we become aware of those policies and practices that should be reviewed and potentially amended, and so Corey's been leading that effort. You know, here are just 3 examples of that. For example, there is an OSHA mandate that requires the city of Hartford provide city employees who come into contact with potentially infectious blood and bodily fluids to have access to a Hep B vaccination to protect their health. That is an option. They are not required to do that, but OSHA requires us as the employer to ensure that they know the city will cover that cost if it's something that they choose to do. There have been departments like the police and fire and DPW that certainly have offered that, but have not done it consistently. And also we have it in the past done a great job of documenting which employees elected to take that vaccine. You know, we felt that it is critical that we ensure every single city employee understand that this is an option that they have, again, that the city will pay for. And so Corey worked with our risk manager and the city departments to create a policy so we are being consistent in how we are bringing this policy to the attention of our employees and ensuring we have the proper documentation. The second is a partnership between Corey and Janice Castle, who oversees the Office of Community Engagement, which includes the 311 service division. And so he's been working very closely with her to look at 311 data and understand, are there opportunities, again, that we can be doing a better job of responding to constituent requests in a more timely manner. And last but not least, we implemented not too long ago an updated City of Hartford vehicle authorized driver policy. And, you know, Corey, again, worked in partnership with the risk manager to ensure that we're actually following the policy and we are, you know, doing all the things that we committed to doing in that policy. And so, again, that requires reviewing documentation, talking to department heads and things of that nature. He will continue those efforts, certainly, as, again, issues or, you know, opportunities to improve come up. And last but not least, Corey worked closely with Development Services, Corporation Counsel, and the Finance Department to update our special event billing procedures to ensure that we are receiving monies that are owed to the city, and again, ensuring that we have the proper documentation as part of that revenue collection process. Slide 6 is sustainability. Again, this is led by Cecilia Drayton. They are a small but mighty team, and so these are just 3 examples of the incredible work that they're doing that is making a real difference in the lives of residents and our small businesses. The first here is the fact that Cecilia partnered with our energy broker to secure lowered energy rates, resulting in an estimated about $800,000 in avoided costs for the city and Board of Ed, and we estimate that we will save an additional $750,000 in year 2024. The second is, this is specific to residents, we relaunched the Solar for All campaign to help residents reduce their energy costs, and we have engaged about 200 residents who have saved an average of $1,700 annually or $141 per month. And the last is a grant that we were able to secure in partnership with the Greater Hartford Transit District. It was about a $250,000 federal grant to conduct micro-mobility study to further connect residents to a form of transportation within 1 mile of their home is the goal that we've set for ourselves with this particular funding. Next up is the Office of Equity and Opportunity, and this office is led by Karen Taylor. And again, a lot of tremendous work happening and a small team that is making it happen each and every day. We're so proud of the partnerships that she has build and strengthened not only internally but also externally, which is just as important. These are just a couple of the examples of her accomplishments. First was transitioning the function of EEOC work or investigations that normally were the responsibility of human resources that are now transferred to Karen's office in the Office of Equity and Opportunity, and that went into effect in January of 2023. She works in partnership with all city departments and specifically the Hartford Police Department. She worked very closely with to onboard an inclusion liaison. So that person is available to maybe groups with our community that do not feel comfortable talking directly to the police. That could be persons that may be undocumented, for example. And so Karen worked very closely with the Hartford Police Department to help create that position. I talked about external partners. These are just 3 examples of the ways that she's working in partnership with nonprofit communities and just community members overall. The first there is Juneteenth. We are so proud of the fact that this is an event that was created under Karen's leadership in partnership with Janice Castle in the Office of Community Engagement. The event has grown every year. It has occurred in Bushnell Park, and we continue to expand. In just last year, we started a partnership with the Amistad Center. This year, we're looking to grow that along with the Greater Hartford Arts Council. The second is an Indigenous Peoples Day celebration in partnership with the Hartford Library and Ebony Horsewomen. I believe that happened for the first time this past year. And the third is Karen's participation on the 50-50 Board Diversity Campaign that the YWCA has led. I know she had invited both city employees and members of City Council to participate in a recent training, and I think some of you did, so thank you for that. And so she will continue to find ways to recruit Hartford residents to join city boards and commissions as a way to achieve the goal that the YWCA has set. So that's on the operations side. The other side of the house is what I refer to as investing in our human capital, and those are our residents. And so this is the work that is led by Patricia under Community Safety and Wellness. The first program is the Civilian Crisis Response Team. As you know, it took about a year or so planning process that some of you were a part of, and we are proud of the fact that we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of implementation, actually a couple months ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago now. I'm proud to report that all components of the HEART team have been activated, have been implemented. The HEART team is not only accessed by persons that are calling 911 if they are experiencing emotional distress, but we have several city employees that will contact the HEART team in the event they come into contact with a member of community that is experiencing some sort of emotional disturbance. These are some stats that we have received from our partners, which are CRT, who responds to those adults in emotional crisis, and Wheeler Clinic, that responds to young people. During our first year, the HEART team received about 733 calls. They made 715 on-site visits. They encountered 426 individuals, and they enrolled 144 individuals in intensive case management services. So we will continue to expand that effort. In fact, in year 2, we have expanded the availability of HEART team members. So the mobile crisis team in Wheeler Clinic increased staffing to provide 24/7 services. Again, they focus on our young people. And CRT expanded to weekends, so they are available 7 days a week. The second program here is the hospital-based violence intervention program. I'm proud to report it's the first of its kind in the state of Connecticut. So our 3 hospitals, Connecticut Children's, Hartford Hospital, and St. Francis, have all partnered with the city of Hartford to ensure that each of them has a full-time clinician that is available to those persons and their families that are victims of violence. So the city funds, through our COVID relief dollars, for each hospital to have that staff person on site. In addition, the hospitals partner with 3 community-based organizations, so those partners are also available to victims and their families for whatever follow-up or wraparound services are needed after the victim and family leaves or is discharged from the hospital. So the first year of implementation, we're proud to report that the HVIP partners hired the staff that we had provided the funding for. They implemented a communication strategy, again, amongst the 3 hospitals and the 3 community-based organizations, and they've begun the creation of a data system so that they can share more information or data to figure out, again, how we can be more responsive to the needs of those persons that are impacted by violence. In total, for year 1, there were approximately 234 gunshot wound cases treated at our 3 level 1 trauma centers, our 3 hospitals, and approximately 116 of those persons who had gunshot wound cases were connected to one or of the 3 community-based organizations we fund through the HVIP. The next office here is Reentry Services. So this logo that you see, the Neighborhood Ambassadors, is a very specific program within the Reentry Division. It is a partnership that the City of Hartford has formed with Open Hearth. So we are hiring those persons who are being released from incarceration. We are hiring them and providing them with an employment opportunity. If you are somebody that is released from incarceration, you are 10 times more likely to become homeless. And oftentimes a person's ability to avoid being homeless is based on their ability to be employed. So we wanted to give those persons coming home from incarceration an opportunity to get a job, and that job specifically to build back their city and be a part of, a lot of the positive things that are happening throughout the city. So the program in its first year, we just celebrated our first year anniversary this month. April happens to also be Second Chance Month, and so Patricia was able to get me some really great data that indicates 94% of the participants of the program are fully employed and do not face homelessness. We initially started off with the ambassadors working to beautify 11 neighborhood commercial corridors throughout the city, and that is expanded to 14. As you know, the downtown has a BID, a business improvement district, that is paid for by business owners. We recognize that in our neighborhoods, our small businesses cannot afford to pay an additional tax for a BID. So we see the Neighborhood Ambassadors program as a way to support our small businesses and ensuring that the areas around their businesses are kept clean, and the group of ambassadors that have been a part of this program, I think, have been able to do that well. So we're really excited and proud of the work that they're doing. We've also supported the expansion of the Reentry Welcome Center. As you know, it was here in City Hall. It was here for about 2 years, and I think served a total of about 800 folks that were coming home from incarceration. That program itself is managed by Community Partners in Action. Because of its success, they needed additional space, and so they moved to Windsor Street, where they currently are. It's a much larger facility where they're able to provide space for nonprofit partners to offer on-site services, and we will continue to find ways to support the work that they're doing, given the need that exists in the city. And last but not least is the fact that Patricia partnered with the Hartford Police Department to receive a $2 million federal grant. That grant is focused on expanding our violence prevention and intervention strategies. 60% of the grant, I believe, is going to hire social workers to provide intensive case management services to justice-involved adults. And so that program is just getting up and running. Another part of that program also involves a partnership with Capital Community College, where we are recruiting justice-involved adults who are interested, again, in working in community, who maybe want to be a mentor or peer advisor to someone else who may be justice-involved, allowing them the opportunity to receive skills training from Capital Community College in order to be a peer mentor in partnership with the Reentry Center. And so we're hoping to do more of that programming, where we're actually giving Hartford residents with lived experience the opportunity to engage and implement some of these programs that have been occurring from quite some time, but would really benefit from people with lived experience. Because I think the ability for folks to want to participate in these programs is knowing that they have somebody who has lived a similar experience, or potentially somebody that they see, again, as a support system. So we hope to expand those efforts. The next division here is the North Hartford Promise Zone, the first, which is led by Courtney Jackson. As you know, the Promise Zone received a Promise Neighborhood grant. It's a 5-year, $30 million federal grant, and so we've successfully implemented year 1. A lot of the efforts have been around engaging, educating, informing the community what the Promise Neighborhood grant is, how they can be involved. So there's been a series of communication or community conversations that have taken place, and there's also been the creation of several resident-led advisory groups that have been up and running. The second is a health fair that the Ascend Pipeline, which is an initiative of the Promise Neighborhoods Grant, has hosted. There were 50 providers there and about 300 residents participated. And last but not least, there was a beautification effort on Barber Street that took place. So many times when we talk about grants, residents, rightfully so, ask the question, well, what does this mean for me now? It's great you received $30 million over 5 years, but I need help in real time. And we thought it was important to demonstrate to residents in real time that we are committed to doing this work, because people can't afford to wait 5 years to see solutions. So we came up with this concept of signal projects. Signal meaning, what are those signs that this program, again, is going to meaningfully impact my day-to-day life. And so one of those signal projects was a beautification project on Barber Street. We did that in partnership with Lowe's, and it included, making updates to a community garden, adding picnic tables, and doing some wood framing on the street and the servicing of plants. And we hope to do more of that work, again, in partnership with neighborhoods. So that is within the Office of Community Safety and Wellness. The next slides are focused on our 311 system. So again, the 311 team works within the Office of Community Engagement. Last fiscal year 23, they saw about nearly 22,000 calls that came in for information, and then there were an additional 8,300 calls for work orders that were submitted to various city departments. You'll see the 2 pie graphs that break down the categories of those calls. Overwhelmingly, the calls are for information, and the top 3 city departments that receive the highest requests for work orders are 1, overwhelmingly Public Works, 2, Development Services, and the 3rd is our Health Department. In terms of budget, so you will see there for general fund there is a decrease of 16% that has to do mostly with the fact that we are transferring our printing operations to the budget office, where at one point it lived not too long ago. It was transferred to my office, and we thought it made sense for it to go back to the budget office. And so that's to account for this decrease. You will see there is a significant increase in the grants line item there. This is projected spend in grants, and this is mostly grant funding to support the projects within safety and wellness that I just described. So the Neighborhood Ambassadors Program, for example, and the HEART team. And then there is an additional increase within the Office of Equity and Opportunity, specifically to do more training and development around EEOC. And that is the end of my presentation, so I welcome any questions that the council might have of me at this time.
Thank you for this detailed presentation. Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Thea, thank you for your presentation and your 8 years of service, but you and I have been working together for longer than that, and most appreciated your passion for serving the residents in the city of Hartford. Just quickly regard on slide, I think it's 10, the highlights for the 311 system.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious, what's the response times for the 311 calls that residents put in?
I have that stat. I feel like it's 2 minutes. Am I right, Janice?
What was your question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you mean on the phone?
No, just in general on getting back to the residents.
So actually completing whatever the request is being made of the city department. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
So that is different, and it depends on the department. So right now, Corey is working in partnership with Janice to do an end-of-year report based on calendar year that's going to give you very detailed breakdowns of every single department and the category of service requests and what their response times were.
Okay. And following up that, what's the department's process for them following up and resolving the cases?
So we use an online system to do that. So once, the overwhelming majority of requests do come through 311, and we respectfully request that, requests are submitted that way. Again, it allows us to track it more effectively. The team will enter it into the system. Every single department identifies a main point of contact who's responsible for receiving any 311 generated requests. And there may be different contacts depending on what the request is, and so that person has to respond within a certain time frame. Every single department is responsible for committing to responding in a certain number of days or hours to resolve the issue, and we certainly are in communication with the departments to receive real-time updates as much as possible. For many of the service requests, I believe you're able to see online. We encourage folks to use the 311 app, where they can see whether or not the department has received, acknowledged the actual service request and whether or not it's been completed. We are trying to improve how it is that we are tracking completed. Sometimes departments, will hit complete, even though the job is not entirely done. And so it's that level of detail that we're trying to mine right now to figure out what is a better job we can do to make sure we're reporting accurately.
Okay, thank you for that. So residents are encouraged to use the app?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. We would love that.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. And what department actually is the one responsible for updating the app?
It is the Office of Community Engagement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they have any type of alignment with MHIS? Is it
They
support-
do, sure.
Okay.
Anytime if there are, we have the software company that I think Janice works very closely with and has a really good working relationship with. But if there are issues pertaining to the app that somehow interfere, with our system, certainly, we engage MHIS. Or if we need MHIS to advocate on our behalf because there's a very technical issue that's nuanced and we can't speak to, we'll engage the IT experts to translate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Councilwoman Rossetti?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chief Operating Officer and the staff. I've said this a few times these past 2 weeks, but in particular departments in particular, as we sit here without masks on, not thinking about what happened in the last 3.5 years, I want to commend you and your staff as some who really probably, shared the burden a little more on what we went through in those 3.5 years. So, I don't want us to forget those times. I want us to forget them in the sense that let's get rid of them, but I don't want us to forget what we went through, how hard people worked, how we had to just think up things on the fly, how, we just had to reinvent things, and how much not only I appreciated it, but I know so many others did.
Thank you.
And then that kind of leads me into my question. Do you have any concerns about things that maybe have been funded or started or continued with ARPA dollars that will be going away? Or those
Absolutely.
types of dollars? And if
Absolutely,
they are,
yeah.
what are they and what can we do to figure out how to keep that going?
I appreciate that question. It's certainly a real concern. I've already begun having conversations with foundations about the role that they can play in sustaining some of those programs that have historically been funded by ARPA. That is one of my priorities during this administration. For example, the Hartford Unity Grants. For the past 3 years, it's our third year, we've been allocating over $1.5 or $2 million to about 70 nonprofits serving young people. I'm really concerned what's going to happen when those funds aren't available. That's a lot of organizations touching the lives of a lot of young people. So I've already begun having conversations with funders, trying to identify what are potential funding sources that could continue to support that work, because it can't stop just because, the ARPA dollars have expired.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you.
Councilman LeBron?
Thank you, Ms. Martinez, for your presentation. I want to acknowledge your leadership team as well, seeing the team that you have and being women of color and strong women and talented women of color. It's great to see.
Thank you.
No shade to you, Corey. When I first started here on Council 4 years ago, we had to deal with appointments here at Council, And over the period of time, there have been a number of people that have been placed in positions that the community may have had issues with. But one thing, hands down, was no one had any issues with you, Thea, in terms of your appointment to COO. I just want to acknowledge that the talent that you are and how blessed this city is to have you. I'm a big sports guy. I think you know that. And coming on the eve of the NFL draft this Thursday, you would be the #1 draft pick for any municipality. So I just want to acknowledge that to you. Yes. So going into questions.
So much. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, going into questions. Without the NFL salary, right? Yes. So one of the things that you mentioned was in your key strategic efforts is the COVID-19. From this budget book last year to this year, people, a lot of departments don't mention COVID-19, but you still do. Can you just elaborate a little bit further as to why?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, COVID is something that we still need to educate our community about. We are still offering vaccinations. There are persons who had COVID who are, still dealing with what's referred to as long-term COVID, and I don't know if we'll ever really fully appreciate what the impact of that is and how it's affected our community members and what their medical or health needs are. I think COVID not only just physically impacted our lives, but it mentally and emotionally impacted us. I see that in our city employees. I see that in our community members, specifically our residents. Certainly as a country, we are recognizing that the mental health needs have been exacerbated by the pandemic, and I think it's going to take a very long time for us to recover emotionally and mentally from what we just experienced. So I think we're going to have to continue to find ways. I think that was a truck outside.
No, it wasn't me.
Yeah, it was not the fan, yep. I think we're going to have to continue to find ways to support both our employees and their families and the broader community in, again, recovering from the emotional and mental impact that, we have endured because of COVID.
Makes sense. So in terms of policies, is there any policy initiatives to have anyone working with families and or youth to be DCF mandated reporters?
Yes, the state of Connecticut requires municipalities who have city employees that perform certain functions that are coming into contact with children. They are required to be mandated reporters, and there's a training associated with that. I think the department that, I think of instantly is the Department of Family and Children, and the persons that, work in our early learning centers or our recreation centers. The Hartford Police Department are mandated by DCF to report if they suspect that there's been any sort of abuse or wrongdoing. So certainly there are policies in place as per the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. And last question, in terms of sustainability and, just in terms of sustainability, how involved is the sustainability office in purchases made by the city? The easy thing, for example, like light bulbs, energy efficient light bulbs.
Yep.
How involved is your office and the sustainability office involved in all of our purchasing power, if you will, in that sustainability effort?
That is a great question. Ideally, sustainability is something that every single city department should be thinking about, and it should be informing the way in which we do the work. That's a huge undertaking, and so given our small staff, we do not have the capacity and bandwidth to be able to do that well. So to answer your question, our sustainability office currently, in the way it's structured, is unable to be a part of decision-making with specific to the procurement of goods and services, but certainly Cecilia has done an incredible job of focusing on opportunities, for example, specific opportunities that are more manageable, and I think she is focused on energy saving opportunities. So not too long ago, maybe pre-COVID, we received a state grant that allowed us to replace lighting within city facilities to LED for cost-saving measures. Certainly, we would love to do more of that. We have looked at our current fleet to try to, for example, determine are there opportunities if we are going to purchase vehicles that they're energy efficient. So, again, we're not able to take on all goods and services that we procure, but I think we're trying to at least make an effort to start somewhere, and so a big part of it has been on energy efficiency opportunities.
Thank you, Thea, and thank you, Madam President.
Councilman Hernandez?
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I don't have such an eloquent introduction as Councilman LeBron, so I'm just going to go right into the questions.
Perfect, okay.
The 95% reimbursement rate that you are seeking for 2024, for 2024 prior release, you already secured the one for 2023.
Correct. So I think it was about 2 years ago, and Paul would know the specific year, that the state passed a 95% reimbursement rate for the city of Hartford, and I believe it is set to expire in 2024. But every year, as part of the state's process, we have to submit those schools in which we are requesting be added onto a priority list that they then approve, and therefore is eligible for that 95% reimbursement rate.
So there's no doubt that you will receive that 95% on the next one. It's almost like a sure thing that 95% rate.
Correct, yes. Okay. I believe it's set to sunset at the end of 2024. Is that right, Paul? Yep.
Okay, perfect. So that I will then not ask you the follow-up question since that's the answer. But my next question is, under that, the HART team, the presentation stated that 144 individuals were enrolled in intensive case management services. I assume those are, case management services received, from outside organizations. Does your office also follow up on receiving any kind of data as far as retention services or any kind of data that shows that it wasn't just that they got enrolled, but that there was actually some sort of result, that they stayed with the program for X amount of days, some sort of data that shows the efficiency of the program, perhaps, or some sort of like data that shows.
Yeah, sure. What are the outcomes, right, that were achieved as a result of that resident being connected, for example, to CRT. So CRT responds to our adults that would receive intensive case management services. And yes, we want to know, for example, if somebody was facing eviction or if somebody is living with addiction, were they able to go to a rehabilitation center for recovery services? If, again, they were facing eviction, were we able to assist them with funding for them to secure housing? So we do ask for that information as well.
Does that information is received like at the end of the fiscal year when the reporting is required, or on a quarterly basis? Or is it in the morning, like in a real time, that then the city can say, okay, you know what, this is not working for this particular individual, let's perhaps refer this individual to another organization or provide other resources in real time before the individual gets disconnected and perhaps, falls into other, incidents or issues?
Yes. So we do have reporting requirements. We do require our providers to provide information more than once a year. It may be quarterly. And I will say that Patricia specifically, works very, very closely with both CRT and Wheeler, and it's on a case-by-case basis. I don't know how Patricia keeps up with it all. She's a licensed clinician. And I cannot tell you how many times she has called or texted me or emailed me to tell me about a resident who is in crisis, who she is trying to support. She has gone to people's homes and she has met with them because they're not willing to meet with anyone else. And so it is certainly a partnership. There are situations where our providers don't know what to do, frankly, or they need help from the city. Maybe police are involved, or maybe there is an issue with the school system, or maybe that resident needs access to funding that CRT doesn't have as part of their program. So Patricia will respond, and there's a lot of problem solving that is happening in real time to figure out how can we support CRT and their ability to respond to this resident with a real-time need.
And last question, the 311 call center, is that, I didn't see any expenses on your budget. I didn't see it in any department's budget for that matter. Is it fully paid by grants, or, because I didn't see it on the detailed budget under your department?
Oh, Sure. I don't have the budget book in front of me, but the 311 call center, the expense is mostly staff, unionized staff, that operate the division, or that comprise the expenses within the division.
Okay. Then maybe later offline, on page 7 of the detailed budget, which is under your department, 311 call center has $0 recommended for this year, and that's what threw me off a little bit. I thought perhaps it was covered by grants.
Yeah, so it's all general fund dollars that support the 311 office, and again, it's mostly staff. Corey, you were saying it's... So the Office of Community Engagement, which 311 is under, is within the Office of the Mayor. So there is staff, like Janice, and a manager that is budgeted to the mayor's office, and then the 311 staff transition to the office of the COO, because what they do is very operational in nature, and I think we made that transition maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. I thought that expense was reflected in my office, but...
So it's not reflected, just as another detail, it's not even reflected on the mayor's office department either. The 311 call center is listed there, but it has $0.
Oh, thank you for noticing. I will follow up with Julie in
But-
the budget office.
Sometimes when a department is transferred to another office, in the reporting, that line item is still there, but you'll see zeros out.
And it doesn't show on the next department that's receiving the...
Yes. So where you see a zero, if that department is transferred over, it's transferred over to the other account where you see the expenses.
Yeah, but he's saying it's not in the
I'm saying
transfer.
that it's not on
in the
either,
transfer.
it's not on either one department, and that was the question, but we can take that offline, so we don't take more time.
I appreciate that. It's an oversight on our end, so we'll be sure to work with budget to adjust.
That means we got money for free allocations on the council. Just kidding. Just kidding. Adding some levity.
Let's not get off track, please.
Well, that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Surgeon?
Give it time to follow up.
So Corey just pointed out, I'm sorry, in the budget book is section 15-2. Under Department Budget Summary, there's the General Fund Summary. 002, Capital Projects and Operations is where 311 expenses are housed. So even though line item 6 says 311 call center,
Yes.
I see it, and it says $150,000, but then in future years it's zeroed out. I think that expense is absorbed within within capital projects and operations.
Okay.
But we will clarify that for sure. Again, I appreciate your question, and we'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And comment, then questions. Oh my God, going on 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, when the mayor recommended you for the position of Chief Operating Officer, I must say that at our COW meeting, we had lots of questions for you, and I believe the entire council was totally in support of you becoming the Chief Operating Officer. And I want to say 3 years later, is it 4 years later, you have not disappointed me in particular. So thank you very much for your service in doing so for the last 3 or 4 years.
Thank you.
One of the things I will also commend you on is your customer service for little things the community may just call to ask you. Not a big overall operation of the city of Hartford, but small little things. For example, somebody get killed in somebody's driveway and the blood needs to be cleaned up. You know, just simple little, and I don't think it's simple, but just that call, and you would have taken those calls and actually service the residents of the city of Hartford. So I want to thank you, and also your choice of the people that you have working for you. They have all provided that customer service to the residents of the city of Hartford. I commend Janice every month going to all the NRC meetings. I don't have the energy to do it, but she certainly does. So I've got to commend you and your choice of, I know she doesn't work for you directly, but for the mayor's office. But it's a choice of people that was chosen to work on behalf of the residents of Hartford. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilman Surgeon.
So here comes my questions now.
Okay.
Yay. In the Office of Sustainability,
Yes.
as you know, the federal government passed trillions of dollars, for the Inflation Reduction Act that is actually coming down, through the state government to the local government. As a matter of fact, there's an article in the Hartford Current about a week ago regarding, I think the governor put about 500,000 for new trees, in urban.
Yes.
So by saying that, and just one person you have in that division,
Yep.
I would certainly look forward to seeing additional staffing for that division, because I certainly see the opportunity for the city of Hartford to benefit from the monies coming down. I call it the green money, coming into the city of Hartford, especially an urban city like our city with an older infrastructure. So I would ask, I know it's very late in this budget process, but that's something I think that department needs to be built up a little bit more to take advantage of those opportunities coming into the city for the next couple of years.
Yes, thank you, by the way, for your very kind words. In terms of grants in general, we have, as you know, an Office of Central Grants, and so that team does have dollars to hire grant writers. So we have an on-call list of grant writers that we engage to help departments produce grant proposals so that we don't miss out on opportunities. I will say I personally have never observed as many funding opportunities as I have during the past 3 years. I don't know, I don't think our challenge is so much is about resources. It's about our ability to implement these programs well. Right? So it's one thing to get the money, and it's another thing to deliver on the commitment we're making to the funder and to the broader community. And right now, our departments across the board are working at full capacity. For example, the CIP is a $130 million program, which is really robust, that involves many city departments. The Hartford Parks Trust Fund, right, has never, I think, accessed this much funding before to do various improvements to our park system. And it has been really challenging for our departments to keep up with the pace of work because of these new projects. So, I think certainly I've been having conversations, and sustainability is a part of that. Out of all the grant opportunities that exist, what are our priorities so that we are focused when we go after these opportunities, and we know we have the capacity, not just within one department, but in multiple departments, to follow up and follow through on what the grant expectations are. So Central Grants has been very helpful to support Cecilia in potentially going after grant opportunities that she may not be able to pursue. There is certainly federal dollars that are coming down the pike. There are federal dollars that are going to the state that the state will then reallocate to municipalities. Certainly we are focused on our tree canopy. In fact, the mayor just today sent Cecilia an email to let her know about a funding opportunity and said, we've got to do this now. And Cheryl in Central Grants responded and said, I'm on it, Mayor. I will find a grant writer to submit a proposal. So that's kind of been our approach to going after some of these funding opportunities.
Thank you for that. And I think the key part of your statement is the implementation and the operation of these grants. So as I know, again, it's very late for the budget year, but hopefully for next year, as we realize the opportunities and align our department for the future, which I think the future, the green energy future that is coming up, is realigning our departments to take an opportunity and advantage of that. I see in the Public Works Department, they're looking at doing, an outreach person, which is great, but at the same time, I think all the department needs to be realigned, and I know our funding is for our general funds, and, grants come in, and of course, after a couple of years, the monies are, dried up, and so, but the opportunity to realign ourselves in the city of Hartford, and I still think that your sustainability department needs a little bit more build up. I take a look at the Green Bank, the City of Connecticut Green Bank, and seeing the opportunity that the city could work with that organization, again, for implementation.
Yep,
so
agreed.
just a thought
Thank
for the future. Then my next question I do have to commend the Equity and Opportunity Operation. I believe it's a great thank you very much for June 16th. You did a fabulous job. I've heard in comparison to Bloomfield, I'm a little bit competitive in the city of Hartford, and I love when, we can say we beat other people. So thank you for that. In conjunction with that, maybe a year or so ago, Councilman Clark had put in a resolution asking the city to take a look of turning, Juneteenth into a holiday in honor. And we haven't, I would love to get an update on where it stands. I do believe you have to go back to the unions to make little deals, and how to work that out. But I know you can't give me an answer to that now, but if you can send an update of where we are, how many unions have participated. I think there was an estimated cost, I can't remember, of how much that program is going to be costing.
Yes. So any couple of things would have to happen. If we were to add or make a change to the current holidays that we recognize as a city, it would require an ordinance change because there's an ordinance that identifies what the 12 city holidays currently are. And also we would have to negotiate with our 7 bargaining units. I don't think it would be difficult, but it would require us to memorialize their approval of an additional holiday. And then we would have to identify the funding for those employees who would be paid overtime because they are required to work that day regardless of the holiday, and I believe that's about $300,000. This budget that we have recommended to the council does not budget for that $300,000 expense if we were to acknowledge or recognize Juneteenth as a city holiday, and I'm happy to follow up and work with council about
And
that.
so off the top of your head, do you remember how many unions so far have agreed or not agreed?
There have been unions that have publicly expressed support, so I think as part of that resolution, Councilman Clark, I know the Hartford Fire Department Union was supportive of that. But I have not surveyed each of the unions to ask what their position would be. We would need to do that, but again, I don't imagine that they would take issue with a 13th holiday, paid holiday.
Sure. But, so, if you could put that in writing, update on that. I do know that an ordinance is needed for that to be implemented, but I do believe that we were looking at getting an estimate the cost, and where the agreements were with the union. And then, of course, council could discuss it, to see if it's something where they wanted us to go.
Sure, it's about $300,000. I will follow up with an email, but that's the last number that I believe I received from our budget team when I asked them to run calculation.
And the number of unions who have agreed out of the 7 unions?
So none of the 7 have formally agreed because we have not formally approached them to enter an agreement. But when we look at what we pay out for other city holidays where employees are required to work, mostly our public safety departments, it's about a $300,000 expense.
Okay. So then you would require us to pass an ordinance before you approach the unions?
We would want to first receive the union's approval or agreement, and then I would amend the ordinance.
Okay. And I'm not sure how many more, that probably comes into play at times when you do our union agreement. So maybe I'm trying to figure out when it's a good time.
So we, are in regular communication with each of the unions, and there are MOUs or, agreements that we do enter into with them that do not have to wait or be postponed until we're, renegotiating the entire contract.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to follow up with that later on. Don't think I have any more notes on myself for the broad. There was one thing with the HEART program, and I think those questions were answered regarding, I know this is the first year of implementation, so your data collection is sort of, brand new currently. But whatever data is collected so far, can you share that with us?
Absolutely.
Sorry? Nope, thought somebody had said Councilwoman, okay. And so that would be really appreciative to see, hopefully, I know the program is working well, because I certainly have gotten feedback from the community and the service that is provided in that program, especially when it comes to activities outside of our control. The people in the community, there's things that's happened to have really, given back great feedback on the services that is provided, especially in the mental illness time. More than anything else, lots of families are having a really difficult time. Instead of calling the police, to handle a family member, they're taking this opportunity. So I do know anecdotally that the program is working, but it's just getting some numbers, as we go out there, and talk more to the community.
Yeah, we are happy to share with you the reports that we require, both of CRT and Wheeler. And again, Patricia and I were just chatting about that before the start of this presentation. There are certainly so many success stories, and we're also looking for ways to expand partnership. Case in point, Wheeler, right? So Wheeler is available 24/7 if we receive a call through via 911. Patricia and I met with Wheeler maybe less than a month ago and said, how can we formalize an agreement so that any time there is a report of a shooting or homicide in the city of Hartford, that not only is the police department responding on scene to secure the scene, but there's a follow-up call to Wheeler, and so now Wheeler's mobile crisis team is also on site with HPD to talk to the neighbors, to talk to anyone that saw or heard anything, because we understand being regularly exposed to violence is traumatizing. And so we don't necessarily want folks to wait until they have to go to a hospital to receive medical care. We know there are direct and indirect victims of violence, and we know the people that are directly affected are receiving care at the hospital, but there's an entire neighborhood who was also impacted, who we also need to just ask the question, are you okay? And that's the conversation we're having with Wheeler right now about how can they also arrive on the scene once the scene is secured by HPD. And we would love to do that with adults, but as a starting point, we're going to start with our kids.
Great. So again, thank you so very much for your service, and I want to thank all your staff for the support of you in the job that you're doing. And 4th year now, and so thank you so very much for everything.
Thank you for your kind words and support. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Hercules?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, first thank you, Chief Operating Officer Montanez, for your leadership and stellar selection of fellow leaders to work alongside you. So I appreciate Councilwoman Surgeon's comment about Juneteenth, because that was going to be my question as well. I learned today that I think Hartford is amongst the first municipality to recognize MLK Day, so it would be great if we can do the same for Juneteenth, or be amongst those municipalities that recognize that as a holiday, if we can work together to make that happen. I know on top of probably everyone's mind, obviously this administration is coming to an end, and one of the things that is somewhat bittersweet, right, is yes, it's great to have new energy and there's new opportunity looming, but there's so much good work that is often undone or revamped, right? And so sometimes I think municipalities of our size need to operate more like businesses and have succession plans. And so I'm just curious with respect to the wealth and the breadth of community impactful work that your office is doing, Director of Equity and Opportunity, under Director McIntosh, like so much great things, right? Like, how are you thinking about housing some of that work in departments that will never go away, or with partners in the community, so that some of that can continue? Because it is, like I said, it's a bittersweet type of situation where, yeah, it's great, we're going to have change, but some of these initiatives need to be, expanded and furthered. So what type of thought, what type of strategies are you guys thinking about with respect to that? It's just something that I'm really curious about.
Thank you for asking that question. I think about that every single day, and I have for almost 8 years now. And so whatever programs and initiatives that start within the mayor's office or the office of the COO, I see our role is doing the heavy lifting, identifying the resources, the funding, the staff, designing what that plan looks like for implementation. And my goal is to get it out of our offices, right? Because now it doesn't become necessarily politicized or contingent upon who is in office that particular year or that term. The goal is to take those programs and then to integrate them into the operating departments so that they are able to sustain themselves, and also to forge partnerships with our nonprofit partners in our community who will hold us accountable and demand that the city continue to do that work so that it doesn't start and stop with a different administration. We are never going to be successful if our ability to, make progress is contingent upon, 4-year terms. This work is complicated. It takes years, if not decades sometimes, right, where you're able to make a difference. And we have to ensure that when we are building these new programs and initiatives, we are thinking about the future and how do we protect it from a changing of administrations or policies.
Thank you.
Councilman Mixtum?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Montañez. And thank you to your whole staff because y'all are putting in the work. A couple specific questions about stuff you talked about. The civilian crisis response team, you said they handled 733 calls. Is that, I guess, you said you wanted to expand the team and what their reach is. Do you have a sense of like what is the need, right? Like if money were no object, how many calls would you expect them to get in lieu of that 730? What fraction of the city's need is that 733 calls, ballpark, if you have a sense?
I don't want to misspeak. I think our experience and what we need to continue working on to increase the number of calls where the HEART team is deployed is contingent on a couple of things. One of them is specifically with Wheeler that responds to children. Our experience has been for those persons that are calling 911 for assistance, they don't want a HEART team response. Many times they are requesting that their child be transported to a hospital, specifically Connecticut Children's, for a whole host of reasons, right? So we are trying to do, in partnership with Wheeler, a better job of educating families, right, so that they understand what the HEART team can do to support a young person who is experiencing emotional distress, and so that they don't feel the only option is to hospitalize them. Hospitalization may be appropriate, but again, it may not always be necessary. So I think it's helping our residents understand what HEART team can and can't do, and them being comfortable with that. I think the other piece, and this was something that came up early on, Councilman LeBron was part of our planning team, was trying to ensure that both police and fire mostly, felt they had a true partnership with the HEART team and were calling on them to assist them in responding to these calls. And it was really significant that for the first time, the police and fire department, for the most part, had this type of resource, right? And so it involved a lot of conversations with our public safety departments, Patricia going to roll calls, doing ride-alongs, asking for feedback, so we could figure out how to build and strengthen that partnership so public safety employees felt comfortable and had confidence in the HEART team's ability to respond. I think the other piece as well was always this question of, are HEART team members in danger if they're responding to a 911 call, right? And so that certainly was something that came up in our planning meetings. It was something that our providers expressed concern about, and I think what's been really helpful about having this first year under our belt is just having evidence that, many of the times that our HEART team folks are going out, there hasn't been a safety issue necessarily. Like their lives have not been in danger, right? And so I think we need to continue to use the cases and the calls we're going to point out the fact that, we're having positive results when we have the HEART team go out.
So I appreciate all of that, and I don't want to I'm not trying to suss out a secret answer, but when you say, to expand the team in the coming year and presumably the year after, even, whoever you pass that on to, is the vision that they could be responding to, 3,000 calls, 10,000 calls? Do we have any sense of where it could go and at what pace in terms of capacity?
I don't have a specific number. I'm happy to follow up with Patricia. I'm happy to have a conversation with CRT and Wheeler and ask them if they could give us projected numbers just based on experience in year one.
So so I normally don't do this, but I can't help myself, being part of the planning and the author of the resolution that created the HEART team. What the research showed was that 60% of all calls that usually required police response would then be deferred nationally to a crisis response. So if you play that out with the data that we have, for example, with police and fire, you can get to a number, a predictable number eventually. But what I will say is the other services aren't as comprehensive as ours, led by Thea Montanez and Patricia McIntosh. So I would argue that in fact that percentage would increase compared to other municipalities. That's just my humble opinion.
I appreciate that. That was kind of where I was going, like, because 733 is such a small fraction, I know, of all the calls to police. But I'll move on, and we can talk more about that later. But a similar question about the hospital-based violence program. You said that the 116 of 234 gunshot wound cases were connected with services, so half, essentially. Is that because the other half refused services, or was there not capacity? Like, why only half?
I can follow up with Patricia to ask Connecticut Children's that's administering this program if they're collecting that data. I do know for a fact that some number of those cases, I need to confirm the number, are because folks have declined services. So given their circumstances. But certainly we can get more information as to, are there additional reasons why?
I mean, that's sort of what I'm getting. So I want to know how many people are declining services and how much of it is a lack of capacity or other obstacles, so that we could think about capturing more in the future. So,
Sure.
yeah.
And just the conversations I've had with our community-based organizations, they've asked me, can you give us more referrals? So I don't know if it's so much a capacity issue, especially when we're providing the funding to hire staff, as much as it is, again, and it could also be a situation if they're not declining, they may be already connected to a nonprofit that is providing them support. We are a community that has several nonprofits that are providing, support services. So that could also be part of it. But I don't know so much if it's about capacity per se.
Okay, thank you. Now, on a totally different topic, you and I have talked in the past about the fact that there is an ordinance on the books since, I think, 2014 that says that all police cars have to have GPS.
Yes.
And we learned in the last couple of years that, in fact, maybe not even half of them actually do. And I know your office was working on bringing the city into compliance with that ordinance. Where are we with that?
So I was working on amending the policy, which we did, and with regard to installing the GPS specifically for police, I think it was maybe $1 million expense that was associated with doing that. In conversations with Mayor Bronin, it did not become a priority in comparison to the other funding needs that we have. And frankly, I've chosen to prioritize the work we do under community safety and wellness, given the issues our community is dealing with regard to violence.
Okay, so I'm not trying to like hammer, but so we're still where we were. We're not in compliance with our own ordinance.
Correct.
Still.
That is correct. Yeah.
And then these next few questions are really more, they're like big picture questions about budget priorities. So maybe you're the right person to answer them. Maybe the chief of staff is the right person. And so you can always decline, and then you all could take it up later, because I'm going to ask the same questions to him.
Yeah.
But I am trying to understand the decision in this budget to allot the certain funds in certain ways among departments, right? So it's not something I can ask one department head or another, because they can't answer that. And with regard to the police department and its funding, what we are told by the chief is that they have high staffing needs because of the chief's philosophy of doing a lot of park and walks, right? In other words, after a call, sending those cops who responded to the call out to walk around and talk to people. Not related to the call, just to walk around and talk to people. And that is the thing he has said last year and this year that makes him need so many cops relative to our population, why our number is so high as a city. And last year he said that he didn't know if that reduced crime. This year he said that it did, and data supported it, but he hasn't. He said that to Councilwoman Hercules. He hasn't sent along any data. All the data I look at suggests that park and walks do not, in fact, reduce crime. They make people feel safer, but they don't actually reduce crime. And so I guess in your role as a person who applies data to city operations, do you know of studies or data that show that that policy, which requires such a high staffing level, reduces crime?
I would have to follow up with Chief Thode. I would want to know more about the specific data source he referenced when he answered your question.
He didn't say.
Yeah.
He just
so
said
that's what I
data
want
support
to.
it.
That's what I want to follow up with him on.
Would it be fair to say that if there's no data to support it, we shouldn't be aiming for such a high number of police? I mean, if we have the high number because we do the park and walks, and there's no data to support that the park and walks reduce crime, wouldn't that suggest that we shouldn't have that high number?
I think in general, data is just one proof point. I think it's important as part of decision making, but I think you have to also look at other factors as well. You know, when I think about, for example, the programs and services we offer vulnerable populations, that maybe those persons that are homeless or coming home from incarceration or living through addiction, you know, we don't see a lot of success rates in our ability to effectively engage them, but I don't think that means we stop offering them support. I think we have a responsibility to continue to offer them programs and services. So, you know, I just use that as one example, that the data is relevant and you should consider it, but I think you also have to look at other factors.
What would the other what are police for if not to reduce crime? What would the other factors be?
So with all due respect, Councilman Minktham, I know that you have met with Chief Thode, and I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation or coordinate a follow-up conversation with the police chief.
Okay, yeah, I'll move on from that. On a totally different topic now, we heard from the superintendent, and it's been in the news, that there's a big budget gap for the schools. 20, how many million? I can't remember off the top of my head. 20 million? What's that? Even 1.6 million. I guess my question is, and I know that the proposed budget flat funds the schools because of the state law that requires, well, it doesn't require it, but it says that if we raise the funding, we can't lower it next year. I mean, I assume that's why we continue to flat fund the schools. Are you aware of whether the legislature can waive that? Like if we raised it this year because we had a deficit, could the legislature let us off the hook?
I don't know the answer to that particular question, but I know the state is considering increasing the amount of funding that municipalities are allocated for education. And so, you know, session, I think, ends in June, and I, you know, would assume that by that point they'll make a determination whether or not they're going to increase the funding that we receive.
I mean, is there, as far as you know, like, is there any sort of active, is the city like lobbying for that? Are we doing that? Are we trying to make that happen?
I think, you know, we are in regular communication with our delegation, who are strong advocates of our, you know, public education system. And so I think there is a recognition that we have a lot of needs here in the city of Hartford that other communities do not, and that requires additional support. So I think, you know, there's consensus among us on that.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Councilman Gale?
Thank you, Council President. Quick comment, notwithstanding my colleagues, with respect to those numbers, the 733 calls, I actually certainly hope that the goal is for those things to keep reducing year after year, because we're dealing with problems in our society, and they're going away, but that's not always the reality. I really just have one question for you. Your budget includes $6 million in grant funding, and most of the departments now have been very good about giving us their FTEs under the general fund and their FTEs under grant funding, but I don't think we have that for your department, so I'm just wondering if you could give us a breakdown of how, you know.
Absolutely. So within my office, we're currently planning to use ARPA grant funds to support the work that Patricia does. And I believe that was a line item in our ARPA spending plan for violence reduction and intervention staff. And so her salary, and we also have in this recommended budget a second full-time position, we would like to be funded with those grant dollars as well. But I can certainly follow up via
Yeah, if you
email.
just follow up, I mean,
Yep.
you've got $6 million in here, so I assume it covers something.
It does. So it is those grants that mostly are within the Office of Community Safety and Wellness. So it's the Neighborhood Ambassadors Workforce Development Program we do in partnership with Open Hearth. It is the HEART team, which are contracts with CRT and Wheeler. Those represent a big part of that $6 million, but I can certainly provide more follow-up.
Thank you. Lastly, just let me comment in a slightly different way, but everybody said somewhat the same thing, and that is your passion for the city and for the people of the city is palpable. We love it. And you undersell yourself in addition to all of the things you've talked about here tonight. You also coordinate with the mayor and oversee every other department in the city, police, fire, development services, and public works, which we haven't even talked about. So thank you.
Thank you for your kind words.
Hi.
Hi.
So I think I get to work with you, maybe I can say this a lot closer, right, than a lot of my council colleagues, but I just want to say that I commend you for the work that you've done in the Chief Operating Officer's department. You have brought it to another level, and your staff. I want to commend your staff. Because it's not easy, the work that they do. Not that other departments don't, right? But, you know, you deal so much with the public. And when I look at all the things that your department has accomplished in the last 4 years, through COVID, it is pretty amazing. So, you know, one of the things that I say is that I hope that you stay with the city in the next 4 years. Because if not, we're going to have a tremendous loss.
Thank you for your kind words and your support. I deeply, deeply love this city.
I hope you
And this
stay.
has been an honor of a lifetime, and the people behind me love this city just as much as I do, so thank you.
And with that said, thank you very much. And we will be moving on to the mayor's office. I love that woman, and I hope she stays. She's not? No. What do you mean she's not? She's not. She told you already? Huh? Where's she going? Have David Stuber, who is the Chief of Staff, and Janice Castle, Director of Office of Community Engagement. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam President, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Yes, as the council president stated, I'm David Stuber, Chief of Staff. With me is Janice Counsel, our Director of Community Engagement. We have a short presentation for you this evening that we'll take you through about the budget for the mayor's office this year, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So in short, I'm sorry? So in short, the mission of the mayor's office is, well, to be very brief about it, is to support the mayor in the execution of his duties as chief executive officer of the city of Hartford. So therefore, our overall kind of, mission and objectives align with the mayor's mission and objectives for the city as a whole and for the proposed budget that's now before you. So these goals include, maintaining financial stability and pursuing economic growth for the city, working to promote development across Hartford and all of our neighborhoods, working to keep our streets safe, our neighborhoods strong, continuing the recovery, economic and otherwise, from the COVID-19 pandemic and deployment of the ARPA aid funds, and then finally, coordinating with other government bodies to pursue the city's policy priorities. On this chart, we have kind of a two-stage organizational chart for you here. First, you'll see an outline of the core of the mayor's office, which includes myself, Director Counsel as well, our Deputy Chief of Staff, our Director of Communications, and our Executive Assistant, Leslie C. Kyle. We have one position at the moment that's currently vacant. Then, of course, the Office of Community Engagement also falls within the Office of the Mayor. I'll let Janice give a brief description of that.
Yes. So within my office, our team is split in two. We have our community liaison, which is Kimberly Alexander, and then we have our 311 team. Currently, our supervisor and community liaison position is vacant, and we have 3.5 staff supporting the 311 call center.
So just a few kind of highlights and descriptions of things we've been up to in the mayor's office over the course of the past year. Of course, a major part of our responsibility is to help kind of coordinate the efforts and work of all the different city departments across the city as a whole. But there are a handful of things also that we do in the mayor's office that are kind of unique to our office that don't fall under the purview of other departments. One of those is communications. And so we do work to consistently promote city initiatives and disseminate essential public information, not only about programs, but also to disseminate information to the public in the event of severe weather or other emergencies, to make sure that folks are aware of all that they need to know in those circumstances. As I said before, we continue to support the city's ongoing recovery from the pandemic. One initiative that we took on directly within the mayor's office over the course of the last year was to roll out the new free Hartford Live concert series at the Old State House. This is one of our many ARPA initiatives aimed at helping folks to get back out into the community and enjoy each other's company once again, and hopefully encourage folks from outside of town to come into Hartford and see all we have to offer and patronize our city businesses as well. Another kind of core responsibility of the mayor's office is helping to advocate for the city's interests with other branches of government, including state government and our federal government. So a few things that we're currently advocating for, in particular in this bulleted list here with the state government, would be for closure and remediation of the Mira incineration plant site. We have a variety of housing quality and homeownership promotion initiatives we're advocating for with the state at the moment. We're also working to always secure additional funds to support core city services, including for school construction, and then also secure funding to support additional economic development efforts within Hartford. Now, in addition to all of those things I just described, our Office of Community Engagement does a number of other very key and important things on behalf of the city, including representing the city at all of our neighborhood revitalization zone meetings and also operating the 311 call center. But the Community Engagement Office also spearheads a number of other fantastic community initiatives that enhance quality of life throughout our neighborhoods. I'll let Janice speak to those on this next slide.
So one of the things that we've been able to do within our office is to launch the Love Hartford initiative. And under that, we take on different and creative ways to work with the community around quality of life improvements. One example of that, as you may have seen, residents often complain about graffiti that they see on utility boxes and bus shelters. And one of the things that we quickly learn, when you use resources to clean that off, it quickly becomes a blank canvas for someone else. So we took that and turned that into an art project with funding from the Hartford Foundation. We continue to work with the Hartford Foundation to secure funding to support outreach and engagement with our NRZs, such as National Night Out. Working with the foundation, we approved 21 Love Your Block grants last year, and we are currently in the process of finalizing the approval for this year. In the work that we've been able to do under the Love Your Block initiative as well as the Love Hartford initiative, we were able to secure 3 years of funding from the Hartford Foundation, $299,000, which will come into our office over the next 3 years to support that additional engagement by our NRZs and with our NRZs to support outreach and civic engagement from our residents. We also have a commitment from the Hartford Foundation to support at least $225,000 annually in Love Your Block grants. So again, these are the grants that we are currently reviewing. We have 2 buckets of funding. We have the resident Love Your Block grant, which residents groups can apply for up to $2,500 to implement beautification and community projects in their neighborhood, or they can partner with a nonprofit and apply for up to $25,000. So we just had those review sessions the last 2 Saturdays, and we're hoping to make those announcements soon. We continue in our office to advocate on behalf of our residents for financial support, such as with the Larrabee Fund for assistance with back rent and security deposit when possible. We also facilitate applications for Operation Fuel on behalf of our residents. Those are 2 things that residents can come into our office to receive support. We continue to work across our departments on different community engagement initiatives, just such as our Caribbean Heritage Celebration and Juneteenth celebration. We continue to not only engage with our residents externally, but our city employees as well. We really had a fun United Way campaign and basketball tournament. So it's really great to create those opportunities for residents to interact with the staff here who we enjoy serving them. And one of our biggest signature events have been our annual toy event here at the City Hall. This past year, we were able to get Hot 93.7 to come in and partner with us and provide DJ services. But again, it's another great way of opening our doors to the people that we serve and finding creative and fun ways to interact with our residents.
Thank you. So on the next slide here, you'll just see some summary figures on overall office expenditures. There are some modest increases for wages consistent with what we've seen in other departments. The grant line item that you see there is reflective of a Love Your Block grant that was expended in the last year. That's pretty much all there is to say there. On the next slide, just a brief summary of just some of our overall department demographics. Proud to say that 100% of our employees in the mayor's office are city residents. You can see the breakdowns by race and gender below that. And that's the whole presentation. That's all we have for you this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Councilwoman Rossetti?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I have to echo my colleagues, Councilwoman Surgeon. Janice is like a machine. I think you're like, there's a whole bunch of you because you're everywhere. And why didn't you mention the baking event?
You want some carrot cake and cheesecake?
I mean, I did bring something.
That was fun.
Didn't sell real well, but I did bring something. I think you explained it, but can you explain it to me again? 8.2, the 0 and the grants. Can you say that? Explain that to me again.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
So there was that particular grant. There was a Love Your Block grant. Almost all of that, 114, 148 from last year. I believe 2,000 of it was a Bright Ideas grant, a separate item. But those were simply grant items that were reflected within the prior fiscal year budget that have since been expended, and so they shows a 0 here. So
will we be looking to?
So we sort of switched the model in terms of how we've done the Love Your Block grant. So every time we do the grant, we look for ways that make it equitable and easier for our residents to access the funding. So the agreement that we've had with Hartford Foundation is that they tell us how much funding we have access to. We apply, the residents apply for the grants. Once we go through the approval process, they're going to distribute the funds directly. For the nonprofits, they get the check up front for $25,000, and for the resident portion, the foundation has partnered and uses SINA as a fiscal agent that distributes the fund. So instead of the fund coming to us and we go through the lengthy process of getting out to our residents, they distribute the funds directly.
Thank you, Council President.
Councilman LeBron?
Thank you, Mr. Stuber. Appreciate the presentation. I just want to commend Ms. Janice Castle. Like, you are a dynamo, and to see that it's just two of you, general full-time positions, I mean, echoing Councilwoman Rossetti's statement, it just seems like it's just so much more. It seems like a larger team, and so it's nothing more than Herculean what you're doing in terms of taking on the office of community engagement. So I just want to, we got to give flowers when flowers are due and while we're here, right? So, so the question I have is around one particular item, and this free Hartford live concert item. I don't see anywhere how much it cost. Can you tell us how much it cost?
Off the top of my head, don't hold me to this exactly. I wanted to check the numbers to confirm, but I think we're spending about $150,000 per year on the event series, and that'll run for about 3 years.
So 150 per year for 3 years?
That's right.
So $500,000.
Approximately.
450.
Closer to 400 something, I think.
400.
Yeah.
400. Okay. Was an RFP sent out for this?
We developed the concert in exchange with, or in cooperation with the owners and operators of the Infinity Theater Hall, which is a business that was significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and saw a significant decrease in ticket sales and hit revenues. And so in developing the concert series with them, that was it was consciously done with them in an effort to try to promote more attendance of events downtown, but also as an aid to that business in light of the hit that the pandemic had brought to that industry.
So, because I don't remember this coming across City Council's desk. So are we saying, because it was hard for me to hear, I should cut this off again. Are we, in your explanation, are you saying we didn't have to put it out to an RFP?
In working through our procurement process, it was done as a sole source agreement.
As a sole source?
As a procurement process.
All right. And so we landed, so the vendor that we used was Good Works Entertainment.
Yes, that's right. That's the corporate name.
That was the corporate name. And that was the direct recommendations of the Infinity folks? Like they recommended them?
We did in developing the program. We did consult with other theater owners, like the operators of the Xfinity Theater, and it was kind of a consensus that was reached that working with them would probably optimize not only being able to put on the concerts, but also to work to engage the kinds of musical acts that we hope to see that would draw crowds and kind of like generate some enthusiasm around the initiative to help maximize turnout and benefit to the city.
Thank you. I'm glad, Mr. Stuber, you went on to the types of music and the generation of who we want to see in the city of Hartford. Was there any consideration of community involvement in terms of what we would have liked to seen in the types of music that was brought with this live concert series?
Certainly, yes. I mean, we definitely wanted to have a variety of different musical acts in different genres that were reflective of the community and the diversity of the community as a whole. And so I think that we were successful in being able to do that, including having some local acts that were included in the lineup for last year, and we're currently working to develop the lineup for this summer coming up, and we'll aim to do the same.
So I just want to give you an example of the type of music that was brought down here. So banjo music. There was
Reggae?
Yeah, there was reggae. Okay. I don't know.
What's the point? What's the point? Can we get to the point, please?
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. Is this bothering you? Asking the type of music?
I just want to know.
Because
what
if we're budgeting,
specifically
I'm
is
going to
the
get to the
point.
question. I've never seen in 4 years anyone been interrupted by you, but you've done it twice to me in 4 years. So,
Gentlemen?
Because I want to know what's the
I'm
point
going to ask a
specifically.
question so
Gentlemen,
people.
gentlemen, stop.
All right. So the
question, please,
question
Councilman.
is, the question that I have is, how did we land on the type of music that was selected?
We worked with with Good Works Entertainment, the vendor, and we kind of provided general guidelines as to wanting to see a diversity of different genres and types of music that were represented. And then this is part of the core expertise of why we decided to work with them, that they then went out to look at what was available in the market and what types of acts we could book that were both available within the time frame that we had allotted and on the evenings that were selected for performance against the budget that we had available. And they kind of put together a itinerary for shows kind of based around those constraints.
All right. Will we consider maybe putting out a survey as to the types of music we would use for this live music concert series?
Sure, I'd be happy to consider doing something like that. And,
Yes.
Welcome feedback on the shows as well.
Yes. If my office can help in any way, please let me know. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Councilman. Thank you.
And I'm sorry about the interruption.
Quite all right.
Councilman Hernandez, do you have any questions? Councilman Mixtum, do you have any questions?
I'm good.
Councilman Gale?
Kind of the same question I asked of the COO. With respect to the FTEs that are shown and the grant money that's shown, but it does, you got a flow chart that shows 14 employees, but the book only shows, I think, 7 or 8. But I note that although you got $523,000 in grants last year, you're showing no grants. You're not anticipating any grants in this budget, but I take it you really are anticipating some grant money coming in. I mean, right? Your chart doesn't show any grant money for fiscal year '24.
Sure. So, Director Counsel had outlined in her portion of the presentation a number of grants that have been secured in support of a number of the initiatives that her office is outlining. None of our FTE positions within the mayor's office are themselves grant supported. They're all supported by core appropriations. And so, if that answers your question, Councilman. I would go on to say that if you look back at the organizational chart between the two different pages of it, there is a star kind of placed by the various different positions that are housed within the COO's office, within the 311 call center in particular, and so that kind of helps to highlight the distinction between kind of where the different positions are budgeted and how that's accounted for.
Aha, okay. Thank you. I apologize for missing.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing else.
Thank you, Councilman. So I don't have any questions. I just want to commend all of you for the great job. I've heard horror stories on some administrations, but I'm really proud of this one. We work together very well, this council body does, and so I just want to commend you guys for all your work. And Janice, I'm going to take that back. Am I correct in saying you were charged through the COVID of the planting of, was it the flowers or trees?
Oh, the Hope Gardens you're referring to?
Yes. Do you have the exact numbers on how many plants we planted? When you have a chance, can you send me that? Can you send it to us of how many?
I can tell you how many Hope Gardens people opted in, but we ordered, I believe, about 4,000.
How many?
Bulbs, 4,000 we ordered around the city. And so you can see them popping up in all different locations where folks opted in to plant them. But they've been coming up. I've been driving by and looking at them.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Clark, did I forget you? I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave, thank you we haven't worked as long as I've worked with Janice and Thea, but thank you for stepping into the role and carrying on the mission of the mayor's office, and appreciate your communication and on all the endeavors in the city, and kudos to Janice and her team. I think the echoes and sentiments of my colleagues speaks volume of your team that is assembled, and with 8 years you've been, wow, in the mayor's office, and really have transformed the Office of Community Engagement. Just want to say thank you for providing support regarding Operation Fuel and any other constituent inquiries that my office receives that I give over to your office. I just wanted to know regarding the Love Your Block, actually the celebrations with that you've had with the Office of Community Engagement and Caribbean Heritage. Is there any bandwidth within your office to, I'm getting somewhere, to help out possibly with another heritage celebration?
Now, Councilman Clark, I know that there is an assumption that there are 5 of me that are plugged in different locations around the city, but we would have to talk about, it could certainly be a partnership, and then in terms of the funding dollars, where they would come from. So I'm always, unfortunately for me, I always say we can find a way, but I think it would have to be a partnership. It would not be something that we can just say fully that we can take on by ourselves, but I'm always happy to partner and figure out how we can make things happen.
Thank you. Now, I would not do that to you and your team, just dumping this idea that I have in your office, but I've had some conversations with the Hartford Yard Ghosts regarding an African American parade celebration type of thing. So would love your help, your office's help, and the mayor's help, mayor's office help for that matter. But I will follow up with more information regarding that.
As long as we can twist KT's arm. Did she leave?
Oh, she's still here, yes, yes. How can we forget?
My partner in crime.
Yeah. And you said it was 3 years regarding the Love Your Block grant?
Yeah, so when we first started, it started as Love Your Block. That was funded through Bloomberg Philanthropy for 2 years. The Hartford Foundation took a chance on us for 1 year, and they were so impressed with the success and the commitment and the response that we got from the community. When we reapplied last year, they asked us to put in a request for 3 years. So they've committed to supporting this initiative for 2 more years, and we're in the implementation of the first one currently.
And if I missed this, I apologize, the sustainability of it. Has there been conversations post the 3 years about the continuing on with this program?
So with everything that we do in our office, we're always thinking about this cannot be something that's one and done, right? And so when we invite new partners to be part of Love Hartford Week, so we just invited Lowe's to be a part of it, and they want to know how they can support it ongoing. We talked about our merchandise, one of the resolution that was passed around our hoodies. So we're always thinking about what can we do to add a couple dollars, right? So we have, as many of you know, we have our Love Your Block 2 rental trailer, right? Those things need garbage bags. They need yard waste bags. for some reason, our litter pick sometimes just walk away, but as long as someone's using it for good. So we're always thinking about how can we partner, how can we be creative to bring, you know, with $5 here, $10 here, ask for those type of commitments so that we can keep this initiative going, so that it's something that residents get accustomed to. I'm very proud to say this year for our Love Your Block series, when we opened the portal for ideas, we received 84 idea submissions. And we've been wiggling those down to approvals. Councilwoman Surgeon served with us, twisted her arm one Saturday, but we have volunteers from the community who came in 2 Saturdays in a row to review those grants. So again, it's something that the community is passionate about, so we're always talking to different funders and different groups to see how we can sustain it, because everything that we do is grant funded.
Now, within this budget, is there monies allocated to repaint the Black Lives Matter mural?
So actually, we were in conversations with the Hartford Foundation, and they did award a grant to completely redo the grant to the mural. That funding went directly to the Bushnell Park Conservancy. So we've already secured that funding. We're just waiting for the street to be repaved, and we'll have a brand new surface to put down that mural.
Okay, perfect. Now, out of your office, is your office responsible for the creative arts on the utility boxes that we see around the city? Okay.
Correct.
Is that going to continue?
So that's what we're hoping. We're currently working and in conversations. I know that our COO is working on initiatives and contracts with the Greater Hartford Arts Council so that we can pursue that. It's something that I'm definitely committed to doing. We went out and we surveyed and we've taken pictures. One of the things that could potentially be a challenge is, if you've noticed in some areas, bus shelters have to be replaced. So I know that the DOT were having conversations about potentially being able to give us bus shelters. We haven't had a chance to resume those conversations, but we're looking at all avenues to continue the work throughout our corridors.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I also want to acknowledge before we adjourn, Karen, thank you for the job that you're doing, the amazing job that you're doing in equity and opportunity. Thank you. With that said, before I adjourn the meeting, I want to let everyone know that tomorrow we have our final presentations from the departments, and we will have the city treasurer, the town and city clerk, and the register of voters presenting. So with that, everyone be safe and have a good night. This meeting is adjourned.